know I don't edit. I usually just let it play from the beginning. And I thought you were going to talk while I hit record and walked over to the microphone.
Huh?
I hit record, and I was hoping that you would just start the show off while your time has passed. So,
Oh, you want me to do it?
No.
So I just went to the gas station
Oh, yeah?
because usually when we do this, we get coffee, and you said you were going to make coffee here. So I
And
figured.
did. More on that in a second.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow. You don't have a cup in here.
I finished it already.
Jesus.
Yeah.
You made coffee and finished the coffee in the time it took me to drive here?
Yeah.
I was like halfway here too. Anyway, I wasn't going to go to Starbucks because it's 2018 and I'm done with it. Actually, I had Starbucks earlier today. But I went to, is that my cup from last time?
That's my cup from earlier today.
Oh. Were you sitting here?
Earlier today, yeah. There was a point during the day when I was working on stuff and I still had all my like camera equipment and stuff up, the lighting equipment. And it was just, there was no way I could sit at my desk. So I just sat on the couch.
Oh. I don't picture you sitting on this couch for some reason.
Yeah.
You hate it. You resent this couch.
My laptop.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I went to the gas station to get a fountain drink because let's change it up a little bit. I'll go get a fountain drink. You know, it's one of those big, like buffet style fountain drink things that you have in that gas station over there. And I noticed that you could add flavoring to it. So there's 4 buttons for flavoring, and it was like cherry, and there's only 4. Why did I forget?
Vanilla.
Okay, there's a cherry, there's a vanilla, and then there was one that's just labeled energy.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's like a energy drink. Maybe it's like got some guarana in it.
Right, or taurine.
Taurine. Yeah.
Is taurine bull sperm?
I have no idea what that is. But do you remember back in the day when there wasn't energy drinks? I remember when Red Bull first became a thing. It was like, ooh, we're getting a Red Bull. But before, you would just get you would buy things that had guarana and taurine in it.
I was raised to be skeptical of energy drinks because I remember playing basketball in middle school, and the team that we were playing against, we were watching a game.
Were they juicing?
Yeah,
we
were watching the end of the game before ours.
Yeah.
And I looked across the gym, and the team that we were about to play was downing Red Bull. Like the coach had given them Red Bull. Yeah, it wasn't just the coach. And again, we're like in 6th grade. And I remember my dad just being
supplement.
Like, what the hell is wrong with them?
Yeah.
That heavy, sugary, carbonated drink. And so from the get-go, when that stuff started coming out, I was skeptical of it. And I've had those very sparingly in my lifetime. I had a bad experience with it on a really hot summer day. I had 2 Monsters during a Brave the Storm show, and I thought my heart was going to explode.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I try to sparingly drink those if I'm going to. But, yeah, I've always been skeptical of that because just like one day they happened and we're like, yeah, this is a great idea. Drink these. But it's really just soda that's extra bad for you.
Yeah, I'm essentially immune to caffeine, so I don't know what that's
Me too.
about. Let me just already got a text from Kayla. I'm probably gonna have to go pick her up in the middle of this. We literally just started. Let me tell you about this coffee though that I just made. Made this coffee. Pulled some coffee cups out of the dishwasher, and I was drinking it, and I saw the bottom of it, and there was something in the bottom. I don't know what it was. Some sort of gunky buildup. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the dishwasher didn't wash it good enough. So now I'm like worried about what I drank.
Yeah, that's weird.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Do you put like have you ever put coconut oil in your coffee or anything? Maybe
I have before, but not for this.
There have been times when I've had a coffee before bed and I've had coconut oil in it, let it sit overnight because I've fallen asleep. And when you wake up and look at what that looks like after the coconut oil is no longer, dissolved in the coffee, it looks just disgusting. It looks like there are growths on top of the coffee. It's gross.
Yeah, that's not good.
It congels back together.
One thing that Kayla does that bothers me, but it's fine. She will make a cup of coffee.
Way to cover your tracks there.
Yeah, she will make a cup of coffee, but like when she's getting ready for work, and not finish it, but just leave the cups laying around. And we use heavy cream a lot of the time. Well, heavy cream, if it sits for more than like 2 minutes, it starts to get like skin on the top of it. It's just super fatty. And imagine after like a day and a half when I find a coffee cup like in our bedroom has a bathroom in it. It's just like a whole layer of just gelatinous goo.
Yeah.
So I hope somebody's listening to this right now and they're eating their lunch. But we're gonna take a break already.
What are we? 5 minutes in?
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. You know what's funny about this? I was listening to Finding the Kid this week, and they took a pee break like right after their intro.
Let's not make it a break. Like, let's make it so
I'm sort of teasing that it's a break, but they'll never know.
I was gonna say, don't make it an official break where people will know.
You won't hear one of our Podbean ads that's may or may not be ready for this episode. But we'll talk about that too. Maybe let people know what's potentially on the horizon.
Maybe we can do Patreon.
Too many people are doing Patreon. I'm abandoning it for 2018. All right. We're going to stop, and then we'll come right back. You won't even know. We love
quit
you.
teasing it.
Yeah, we love you.
Just let it happen.
Okay, I don't remember what we were talking about.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. People are like, well, we were talking about this. But we don't know because it's been 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's a good thing I didn't have plans.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's not a big deal. I'm just giving you shit.
I guess.
I mean, what else would we have been doing? Sitting here podcasting, and then we would, again, just kind of just sit around and talk about all the fluff that we normally talk about. And it's not really, no matter where we are, it's not going to make a difference.
The next thing to interrupt us is pizza. We've ordered pizza.
Yeah, but we have like a good 45 minutes, right? Is that the time?
To an hour.
The pop. What are they doing? Why are they busy?
I don't know. People are snowed in right now.
Would you feel bad ordering pizza when the weather's the way that it is?
It's just right over there.
Okay, for you.
Yeah.
But for anyone else, like...
No, that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to drive.
Well, yeah, but...
It's like the post office.
We can be reasonable here, Jay.
Yeah.
You don't feel...
Do you want to make money
guilt at all.
Do you want to make money or not? That's... If you don't want to make money, that's fine.
I don't want to make money.
Oh, that's fine. Then you don't have to deliver the pizza. But somebody out there might. They might really need that paycheck.
The unknown location that I work at, I closed it because of the weather last night. So I got to go home, and so I literally, even though I was joking, I literally chose not to get paid.
I tipped 20%. So
really,
yeah.
We had like a wintry mix. Storm last night for anyone who needs context. Not that I want to talk about the weather, but the point I was making is that I pretty much drive a go-kart for a car, and I knew that if I was hanging out in the middle of my town while that went down, I might have some issues. Yep. I had issues this morning when the roads were, for the most part, clear. So
that's cool.
I'm already over this. Can we move past weather?
Yeah, stop listening because even I'm sick of talking about.
I'll take the blame for some of that.
Yeah, even I'm sick of talking about the weather. I guess. I mean, man, I had lofty ambitions for this weekend to be super productive. I had a half day on Friday. Did a video version of Sight and Sound music. You can go check that out and watch it if you want to.
Believe me, I heard all about it from Evan.
I know it's good. Shout out to all my loyal supporters.
Now this just means that I have to do it, even though I'm not ready yet.
You know
Feeling
what?
the pressure.
It's not that big of a deal. Like I
know.
I think for some reason we put like doing video. It's more work. It is more work.
It is.
And is it worth it? Probably not necessarily for us, but I think it's giving back to the people that do want it.
Well, I would say we should try it just for the sake of maybe optimizing our channel a little bit more. Because I have been a little bit weary since we found out that YouTube might not optimize channels that have just the one image, the still image
right.
as a video. So I've even considered, we talked about it a little bit earlier, doing Sight and Sound bites, but having sort of like a slideshow. That way it's not just still image and see.
It's always been your thing.
I really like the idea.
I like
that. I think it helps.
They've been successful for us in the past.
They have.
I don't know why we stopped doing SoundCloud. It was just extra work.
SoundCloud?
Yeah.
SoundCloud, well, because it was dying.
Yeah, and but we still had a good response
probably is dying. It was also another expense.
That's true.
Because you have to pay for that shit.
That's true. We made some money last year.
It's bullshit.
We made like $200 last year.
not in my pocket. Where is it?
Yeah, we're. I'm fine just letting it sit there.
Yeah,
for
me
right
too.
now and
It's
a
all
crew.
It's all good.
Yeah, I got
all
this-
that money from my Kylo Ren shirt.
There you go. I sold a few Bill Finger shirts.
Right.
Yeah, we really did.
That was my contribution to 2017.
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, I got this new equipment, these new lights, and I'm using my webcam again, which, it is more work than using my phone, but it's a step up. It really is a step up. Did you watch the video? Did you watch either my music episode or the review that I put up recently?
I watched a little bit of it, yeah.
Could you tell
the podcast?
Could you tell that there was a little bit of a bump in quality?
No.
In video quality?
I know what all your equipment looks like. It seemed like it was. I've seen you use your webcam for your short form videos.
But I had the lighting equipment up. It was lit better.
It just looked like it was daytime. So
yeah, it did.
In a sense, that is what you want. That's the compliment. I didn't realize that you had lighting, but it didn't look like it was daytime. So
yeah,
there you go.
My eyes looked good. My eyes looked beautiful.
Good eyes.
Yeah, I had golden brown eyes.
Do you have brown eyes?
I do. I have brown eyes.
Never
And when
noticed.
the lighting hits it just right, I look just fantastic. I do. I contemplated.
Evan will agree.
I agree with Evan. I contemplated driving all the way to Lexington today to buy shoes for the snow. Hey, love my boots that I've got. Guess what? The boots suck ass in the snow because they don't have treads on them. They're completely flat. Almost busted my ass to go get Mexican food the other day. So instead, I bought these. Bought them a little while ago. Not even for the snow, but these Vans MTE, mountain terrain something. And they have treads on the bottom, and they're waterproof, and they're nice, man. They're just regular sneakers, but they're made for cold. They're walking in the snow.
We're back to the weather.
Not necessarily. We're more on attire that has to do with weather.
If we can focus on fashion, you asked me earlier where my jacket was, and I told you I don't wear jackets because I'm one of those guys that, like, you have that jacket.
No. I don't have that jacket.
You have a coat rack full of coats, right?
Oh yeah, I love my jackets.
And
it's a good fashion accessory.
And you reminded me of like my grandmother. Like, you're not wearing a jacket, and it's like
30 as fuck.
I don't need a jacket to walk from my car through the parking lot into Walmart. In my car, I don't need the jacket. In Walmart, I don't need my jacket. So I'm not going to take a jacket just for the few seconds I'm walking through the parking lot. And I've sort of always been that way. And same with like snow boots. I go 300, maybe to average it out, maybe 360 to 355 days a year where I don't need boots for my car. And even on those days that I might need boots, I only need
for your car?
Or for like, I fucked that up. Boots for when I need to take snow or remove ice from my car or anything like that, shovel my driveway.
Don't your feet get wet in those things?
Exactly. So it's really inconvenient for me for a very small, limited amount of time compared to all of the other time
What
where
about
I
when
don't
it's
need
raining?
it.
Do your feet get wet when it's raining?
But I'm never outside when it's raining.
Right.
So again, going just from walking to my car through the parking lot while it's raining, it's never long enough for me to actually get my feet wet.
Yeah.
Maybe my shoes are a little bit wet, but they haven't soaked through because it's not wet enough.
Even though I'm a shoe guy, I wear my boots primarily because they're the highest in fashion accessory that I own and that I wear on a regular basis.
Well, that's an interesting point because I guess if I spent the money on a nice quality pair of boots, then I would feel the pressure. Maybe I need to wear these more so I can get my money's worth. So
the great thing about boots, especially the Red Wings that I own specifically, is that you can wear them. I've worn them to business meetings, like straight up business meetings, and they're a good accessory because, like I said, they're high end. They look nice. They're leather. But I can also go walk out on like a job site, like a work site with construction, and be just as fine wearing them. And they only get better with time. The more patina they get on them, the more age, the scuff. The
patina.
They show some character.
Is that the guy that was in
them.
Homeland?
The sneaker thing. I love me a good sneaker. I really do. And I've said this on the music show, so I'll say it here. if anybody out there wants to up their sneaker game at all without breaking the bank, the surest bet, regardless of comfort, because we're style over comfort here on Sight and Sound. Are we? Maybe that's just half of us. I don't know. I would just suggest getting some Vans, because Vans, again, not the most comfortable shoes in the world, but
I don't agree with that at all.
It's the comfort level.
I think that the Vans that I bought after you suggested Vans to me,
Right.
I hate them and I regret
Because
it.
of the comfort level.
It's terrible.
That's right. It's
yes.
style over comfort. And
But it's more than that. It's the fact that there's so much pain involved there. Like, it's one thing to be like, these aren't the most comfortable shoes. We were talking about the NMDs, the Boost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think like wearing them at work,
Right.
where I'm just kind of walking around throughout the day. I don't think they're even comfortable for that.
yeah.
So
Again, style over comfort. That's what I'm. If someone's interested in that, if they want to up their style game, I'm just saying, go out and get you some Vans, because, I mean, there are people that will straight up wear fucking Gucci, $1,000 clothes and pants and still
Style-
rock some Vans.
I get what you're saying. Style over comfort is wearing a suit to church, even though church is an hour service.
Or jeans
That's
in the
style over
summertime.
comfort. What you're talking about is a shoe that's like walking on concrete that will give you pain.
If
Like,
you have to stand and walk around
It's
a
just
lot.
it's so far to the right on the scale of style over comfort.
Yeah.
It's so far gone because it actually inflicts pain, whereas a suit
Right.
might be style over comfort, but it's actually
I'm relatively
justifiable.
relatively sedentary throughout most of my day-to-day life
Right.
in my job and even working at home. So, yeah, I don't really have to walk around that much. If I was going to walk, you know what I wore when I walked around?
That's what I needed you to get to.
Yeah,
Is
100%.
The warning is get a pair of Vans if you know that you're not going to be walking around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I
That's
was
what I
going,
needed.
if I was going to the theme park, no, I didn't. I wore my NMDs there because I personally think they're the most comfortable shoes that I own. To each their own, it's subjective, but yeah, I've sort of been pitching this. If you don't give a fuck about fashion, then whatever. It's not a big deal. But if you've ever had issues with your, self-confidence and all that stuff, I would definitely recommend at least trying to do that. Like, try to, put some more thought into what you wear, putting an outfit together. Because nothing makes me feel better than leaving the house from time to time. Not always. Right now I'm wearing a hoodie and jeans. I'm wearing the same outfit that I wore yesterday.
You look
It's been a
just
lazy
like
day.
me right now.
Yeah, exactly. And no, there's nothing wrong with your attire. You don't realize it, but you've got some style.
I think
Your style is in. You're like Doug in the Dylan Farnham episode of Doug.
What?
Yeah. You ever watch Doug?
Who's the guy again?
Dylan Farnham. Did you ever watch Doug?
I don't. I remember Doug, but I don't remember a character that was known for his style and fashion.
Well, there was an episode towards the later years of the Nickelodeon run, not the Disney run.
Disney run.
Where there was this teen drama. It was like a Degrassi or a 90210. In fact, I think it was a playoff of 90210.
The OC?
And there was a character named Dylan Farnham on the episode. And every week when the show would come on, whatever outfit he would wear, it would become the popular outfit
Okay.
that kids would wear to school. In one episode, he dressed just like Doug does.
Mhm.
And so everybody dressed like Doug for a week, but Doug already dressed like Doug because he
Right.
wore the same outfit every single week.
Right.
So the next week when he came to school wearing the same thing he wears every episode, people were like, "Oh man, you're wearing last week's look."
Right.
And he was like, "Guys, it really got meta." He said, "This is what I wear all the time."
But that's the problem with cartoons.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's meta. He brought people over to his house and he opened up his closet and he had like 6 of the same outfit.
It was always khaki shorts, white T-shirt with that hunter green sweater vest
Yeah.
underneath.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's what Doug wore.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Why would you wear the sweater vest with the shorts?
I'm big on those. I'm big on the khaki shorts with
Yeah.
like a plain T-shirt. I love that. I don't get to do it often anymore because it's against my dress code.
Right.
Whereas at my old job when I worked at Lowe's, I could wear that all the time.
Right.
But I can't anymore. So I've been wearing a lot more jeans throughout the day. But do you remember the first time you put on Roches? Nike Roches?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was awesome.
that's probably the best feeling I've had putting on a shoe. Over time, you get used to it. It's just like anything else. You get used to it, and then the appeal is lost, the comfort is lost. But that first time I put my foot in a pair of Roches, it was same with the shoes I'm wearing now. What are these? The Janoskis?
Yep.
Nike Janoskis.
Yeah,
first time I put my shoe in this, it was like I was
your
wearing
shoe in it.
Yeah. First time I put my shoe in the Janoski, it felt like I was wearing clouds.
You like that?
That's gone away now. But
one of my favorite things.
I have a lot of pressure on my heel now.
Well, one of my favorite things about those shoes is the fact that they're, I don't know what the word is, almost like serrated, I guess. From the midpoint to the toe. So when you bend them, there's flexes. Have you ever noticed that about the shoe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a neat little
on the bottom. You mean?
Yeah, on the
Right.
bottom, on the sole itself.
Have you ever used that logic I used before about buying expensive boots and then feeling pressure to wear them every day? That way you get your money's worth. Have you ever applied that logic at all? Because where I work in the retail space, so you do that?
There's many shoes up there that I've only wore once. There's a pair of Nikes.
So you don't do that. That goes against what I'm saying.
There are times when I'll buy something and like wear it once and never again.
Yeah, that goes against what I'm saying.
Yes, I don't do something just because I bought it.
Okay. What I'm getting at is I've seen people come into where I work, try to buy a phone charger, and it rings up $10, and they act like it's a crime that they have to pay $10 for a phone charger. And part of me is wondering, don't you realize that you will use that every day? Unless you use it, you will use that every day for maybe years. And you're worried about, like, yeah, it sucks that you lost it, but it's not overpriced. You deserve to pay $10 more.
For sure. It's good to have that mentality.
Right. And I think about that a lot.
I mean, that mentality in the term of like, it's good to know what you're putting value into because of what you're going to be using it all the time.
And that's even phones. Like people say, I'm not spending $200 on a smartphone, but it's like that smartphone will entertain you in every way possible.
Right.
When you're in awkward situations with other people, when you're bored, you have that there with you, and it becomes worth your money. That's with that mentality.
It's the same. I mean, I know you're not a Mac guy, but that's the same reason why I have so much faith in my Apple computer is because their lifespan is just, it's known that they're longer.
Right.
The computers, at least.
Right.
Than most PCs. But regardless, and people are, oh, no, that's not true. Okay, we're not getting into that discussion. But the one thing that I'm not, or the one thing where I've drawn the line in the sand with in that whole situation is t-shirts, because I ran a t-shirt company for a small amount of time because I did screen printing and I had to buy shirts in wholesale without the markup.
Yeah.
And I realized how much it actually costs to make a t-shirt. People are making a fucking killing on t-shirts. So I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm buying blanks. I'm not gonna. From time to time, I'll buy a graphic T-shirt. I have them, obviously, and you guys should buy them too. You guys should buy them on sitesoundpod.com. But the markup is just silly. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I only own one Sight and Sound T-shirt. I need to change that.
I own a lot of them.
I know. About to re-upload the classic.
I
design.
did like the Coca-Cola one.
Yeah.
I did a survey. I did a couple surveys in our Facebook group asking people like what they thought about 2017, things they liked, didn't like, things that they would like to see us do differently, just to kind of take a lay of the land, if you will. One thing that I left out, and I wanted to ask you what you thought about, just kind of maybe changing the mentality of our t-shirts, or maybe just coming up with a separate store, because obviously we want shirts to say Sight and Sound, and we want Sight and Sound fans to wear Sight and Sound shirts. But part of me feels like if we come up with that, the Kylo Ren thing or the Bill Finger thing or whatever, what if we always had a mentality to make just pop culture shirts in general?
Yeah.
And this is actually just kind of becoming an off-air conversation, but just to help, purely to help funding of Sight and Sound, but not particularly apply to like our fan base.
Yeah. I mean, and I've talked about it ad nauseum on here before about how much efficiency plays into what I do on a daily basis. I'm sure you have that factors into what you do as well, because my personal time is so not personal time because my time is so limited
Yeah.
on what I do. Things have to be as efficient as possible. I think you learned from firsthand just how difficult doing those pop culture shirts can be, especially doing them the right way to where we can avoid like a Game of Thrones situation and them getting taken down. I mean,
That's the part I know very little
all
about.
that work and time and effort that I put into all those shirts just went away
Yeah.
the second they're uploaded. So it just takes a lot. You have to be a lot more careful with it. I've never been a fan of doing it personally. I know 100% that it would be advantageous from a financial standpoint. However, for me to sit there and spend the time to come up with the concepts, and same with you. I mean, even just executing them, it's a little bit more difficult.
And part of me wonders if it's like anything else that's so oversaturated.
Yeah.
It's almost like a YouTube video, in that when you look at the return on a YouTube video, we might get one every 3 or 4 weeks that really takes off. Probably playing the same game with anything on TeePublic, because
Absolutely.
When I put out that Kylo Ren shirt, Star Wars The Last Jedi had been in the pop culture consciousness for a long time, to where maybe hundreds or thousands of people had done that already.
Yeah.
Maybe even a year ago.
Right.
So it's like you have no idea if it's going to take off. So
my personal stance
it's another YouTube
on the pop culture t-shirts right now is, I think it might be similar to how you think of it right now. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into like, I've got to think of if I come up with something and I think of something, then I'll do it. But I'm not. It would take so long for me to sit down and come up with like 10 ideas or whatever the case may be.
Well, I'm trying to get rich, Jay, and I think my biggest regret of Sight and Sound in 2017 is not doing that UK shirt that Drake wore at Big Blue Madness.
Yeah, we should have done that. But I hate to break it to you, I'm not going to be rich for another 10 years. So sorry.
Who's ready to
if you want to
get Patreon?
If you want to get out now, I mean, I get it, but you better get used to that job that shall not be named for the next 10 years of your life. Yeah. I mean, think about it.
I didn't come here to think about it, Jay.
If we were ever to get money, it would probably need to go into making the current content that we have better.
Salary
first. Well, I mean, ultimately, and we've always said this. I mean, the thing that would make Sight and Sound better would just be to have more time. The way to have more time would be to quit our day jobs.
Salary. It's like Mark Wahlberg says, just get paid.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best example at this moment in time, because we're not sure how we feel about Marky Mark these days.
No, that's another anecdote. I'm not talking about that. There was
but it's applicable.
It is. What a coincidence. I'm referencing some other anecdote about a young actor years ago when they met Mark Wahlberg.
To stay on this topic, I sort of teased it before we went to our impromptu break, but
that nobody knew about.
Yeah, we got this notification when I logged into Podbean, our podcast host. When I was going to upload music, I got this notification that we were eligible for a beta testing of their new ad system and their commercial system. And a lot of people, or a lot of other services have this, but basically they've gone out and gotten advertisers, and they will allow us to plug in their ads into our podcast to help monetize Sight and Sound. So with that being the case, I don't know when it's going to happen. I have no idea. But the current setting is a pre-roll and a post-roll. What that means is when you hit play on our podcast, you'll probably hear an ad. And then when it's over, you probably stopped it already. But there will be an ad at the very end.
Like Lebitard. That's how it happens when you do that.
And we can also plug in points of the show when ads should be played. And the good news is we already build in breaks, and we already build in our own ads for our own content. So that's probably where that's going to be. Now, if you're just thinking to yourself, I don't want to hear ads.
Sell out.
Well, guess what? One, you can fast forward. It's really not that big of a deal. The other good news is I'm sure when we do launch Patreon, there will probably be some sort of commercial-free thing that people could probably get if they wanted to. Yeah, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be the case.
We're also still waiting for our approval through Spotify. It's taking days, and I don't know what's going on with
Taking
that.
days? Are you serious right now? It's going to take months.
You think so?
100%.
Wow.
Ryan Snelling. Spotify is not responsive at all. So,
Well, you think if they have a corporate partnership and some kind of deal with Podbean that they would already have the resources in place to handle something like that.
what a great transition. Let's get into music.
Let's do it. I got something for.
We're
Radiohead.
adding something because I actually forgot to do this on the music show.
I'm just letting you know. I'm getting the audience ready. I've got something for Radiohead here.
So, Spotify is about to go public. Are you familiar with this? Did you know this? Spotify is about to go public and be traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's interesting because Spotify, what some people don't know, Spotify has never turned a profit. Are you aware of this?
Yes.
They've never done that ever. Spotify is a tech company that is in business to sell to a bigger company. Plain and simple.
Okay.
What they do have is a huge user base with a ton of data to mine to potentially sell to a company, a backbone that they could sell to somebody like an Apple or Google or an Amazon, whatever the case may be. Pitchfork had a very interesting article that sort of broke down and theorized what Spotify could do after they go public. Where they made a point to say, and I actually do agree with this, I want your take, that going public means that there are new things on the horizon for Spotify. But one thing that they're probably not going to be doing are taking a bunch of risks. Like, I don't really see them like, let's try to make our own Game of Thrones. Like, that's obviously not their lane that they want to be in. However, investing into original content to be on Spotify is something that's fascinating. Getting into the podcast game, hosting podcasts specifically on their platform. They've toyed around with video stuff too. I think we are going to see a lot of interesting content coming from Spotify in the next few years.
I'd be curious to see if Amazon is that company that does that. By the way, we should immediately invest.
I don't know if you'd want to invest in a company that's not turning a profit yet. But they're valued at like $20 billion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shit.
That's how much it would cost essentially to buy them.
I'd be interested in I'd be curious if Amazon would take that deal. Did you see where Bezos
could be Disney?
Okay.
What if Disney bought Spotify?
And then you would have an app full of Disney soundtracks.
Or something to build their backbone of their video streaming service.
Right. That's interesting. Did you see that Jeff Bezos became the most rich person ever? Like
the most rich person ever. The richest person ever?
Yeah. Well,
it's just a funny way to say
it is funny.
He'd be the most rich person ever.
Most rich. He's the richest person ever as of like last week. And he's donating $33 million to student grants.
A website that sells
really
books, that's never going to work. Somebody said that. I don't remember who said that.
He literally became the backbone of just commerce in general. I mean,
he's ruining modern American economy, and I say that in a positive way.
I know.
He's challenging how we do business.
It's like Gary Vee says, retail is going to be carnage here in the next few years.
Right.
Going to be carnage. Saw it with Sam's Club going down.
They're the Netflix, and everyone else is the Blockbuster.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to your original point, I don't have a whole lot here, Jay, because I'm not smart enough to know this kind of stuff. But
yeah, it's just an interesting thing.
It is. I think it's actually the more interesting thing is the stuff that I had learned previously, which is that Spotify hadn't turned a profit, because I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if that's some strategy, because I just don't know how you do that unless you consciously do that. And if I continue talking, I'm going to have to charge all of you, because I'm giving all of this away for free. The Ryan Snelling School of Business guide here. So This will be my last point. But Spotify wants to make money, put a halt on all of their expenses, creating content for a month, just let a month worth of payment roll in. Profit.
Well, the money suck for Spotify is the royalty rates they have to pay their artists. They can't not do that unless they just, I guess, hit
Make a deal for a month, do it, get it over with. You see profit. Shareholders will be happy. Everybody's happy. Then you can go back to doing the thing.
The other interesting thing about this whole discussion is Spotify getting in the business of being more insular and being, like I said, content creators, which also could mean, like we said, I guess it was last week, putting the power back in the hands of the creator, talking about some sort of Spotify record label of some sort. Now, where this raises an issue is, are they going to be pushing their own stuff to the front of the line?
Right.
In my personal opinion, I don't care. I've been challenging people ever since I've been podcasting about music that they need to be better music fans and work a little bit harder to seek out the music that they want, because it's there for you. All you got to do is look for it. So, yeah, there's that too.
In the way that Netflix sort of just out of nowhere says, hey, we're raising our price here. Would you ever be comfortable paying more for Spotify than the $9.99 that you already pay?
I would pay more. I would probably go as high as like a $12 to a $14.99, honestly, for Spotify.
It's interesting to me because obviously you care a whole lot more about music than I do. Mm-hmm. But when you do that, when you add that evaluation, you're making Spotify the equivalent of an HBO. And for me personally, I don't connect those dots.
I think it's
sort of baffling.
Yeah, I think it's worth more, and it could be worth more.
It's worth more in the sense that obviously the amount of music is greater than original content on HBO, but it's also just the portion size that gets me. The
point that really is this is a good conversation to have with all streaming services. If you're going to raise your price, give me something in return, right? You want me to scratch your back, scratch mine. Whatever the case may be, whether it's better curation, whether it's new features, just simple features could go a long way in how Spotify does their business. The other thing that was brought up with this that I think freaks people out a little bit, but I actually don't have a problem with it personally, is, two things. There's one aspect of it, a quote unquote pay for play. Basically, if an artist wants to pay for their album to be like a featured album or on certain playlists.
Yeah.
I have no problem with this being the case as long as there's transparency, which lacks in a lot of these tech companies, if I'm being completely honest about it. The last point that I wanted to make with Spotify is something that I've actually talked a lot about in the past. You remember that podcast that I did on In the Galaxy, like how to fix the music industry? Do you remember that?
Yes.
I need to update that. Anyways, is this sort of an idea for exclusive albums released on Spotify that you do potentially have to pay for to listen to? I actually do support this. I support this 100%. A limited time sort of pay window to hear an artist's new album. I think only major artists can do something like this, like a Drake, if they wanted to have like a 99-cent window to listen to it within the first week or two. I think it gives people the opportunity to say, I'm good, I'll wait for this to be widely available, or contribute an extra $1, whatever it be. I think they were actually going to withhold it from all Spotify customers if they use the for free platform. And actually I don't know anybody that even uses the free platform of Spotify. I know more people who just don't have Spotify because they're like, well, I don't want to pay for it. And
they use Pandora.
Yeah. And I tell them, well, you can use it for free if you want to. And they're just like, I'm good.
Right.
So I don't really get it. But I also had this idea of doing like, someone would only be granted one premium stream a month. So if Drake released an album and it was in this window where you couldn't access it in the first week or two or first month, you could use that token, almost that premium token. And let's say Kanye also released an album that month. Well, you'd have to pay that for an extra token or something.
Right.
Spotify, hit me up. Let me know. Or no, it doesn't matter. But if you're worth $20 billion, then that's cool.
Give me a push notification when my podcasts are available. Spotify.
Are you actually listening to podcasts on Spotify now?
I do on my computer.
Really?
Well, because I don't use iTunes or anything like that, I never had a way to listen to podcasts on the computer unless they were on YouTube. And so when I'm sitting, I mean, normally if I'm sitting at my computer, I would just have my phone play a podcast beside me. But now that Lebitard is on Spotify, I can just listen to it at my computer.
How do we feel about podcast exclusively being available on certain services? Like there was that one I mentioned, Rap Radar, I think it was just bought by Tidal, so where it's exclusively available there.
Well, I was going to say I don't have a problem with Spotify creating podcasts that are on Spotify.
Right.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I think it's silly for a content creator to decide that. Like if I would never want to make the decision that Sight and Sound is only on one carrier. Like I mean, it's not really the format of podcasting anyway. Once you have an RSS feed is everywhere. Yeah, so it just depends on the thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, here. I mean, if I'm being completely objective about it, first of all, I think the question would be, well, what makes it okay for something to be exclusively available on Netflix, but a podcast not exclusively available? But what I will say is the value of a podcast, much like the value of music, because of oversaturation, is much, much, much lower. I would even say that for the most part, outside of just advertising in general, the value of podcasts is extremely low to almost non-existent.
I mean, think about it. We do how many hours a week for free? Exactly.
And think about
and that's part of the expectation. It's like, of course, that's how I'm comfortable with that. Like, think about how comfort we are without any questions at all. We just record for hours and put it out there for free without any return expected.
And that's why Patreon is. This isn't a plug for the Patreon that we're going to be doing, but that's why Patreon is, to me, the ideal platform for a lot of content creators out there, especially podcasting, because you're telling people, if you want more from us, then you can contribute for more. You're investing in more content that we're putting out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. That was not part of the music discussion originally. What I did want to talk about...
Still going here?
Well, we still have... do you want to talk about Jack White? Do you have a take on this Jack White thing? What's your opinion on Jack White?
I've got something on Radiohead.
Well, what's your opinion on Jack White?
I really, really like that song "Old Enough" by the Raconteurs. Have you heard that?
No.
Maybe when you're old enough.
Yeah, no.
It's a really well-written song. Then, of course, the Seven Nation Army. Is that what it is?
White Stripes, yep.
Yeah. I'm a fan of the hits, Jay.
Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground. It's my favorite Jack White involved song.
Never heard of it.
Dead leaves in the dirty ground.
I was throwing you off on Facebook. You brought up Jack White, and I said I was a big fan. Yeah. Totally made it up. But I do. There are particular songs that I do enjoy.
Of course,
and I respect him as an artist 100%. For sure.
Yeah,
he does his own thing. He lives his own little universe. Doesn't adhere to any mainstream standards by any means. So,
did you listen to the new songs?
I did.
What'd you think? Well, one of them is just essentially an instrumental
for the most part.
Yeah.
It's the second one. What's the first? It was Collection of Love, or
I don't remember the name of it.
Something like that.
Doesn't matter because it's not a good song.
It's not.
It's not at all.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's. I sort of gave my take already on the music episode, but I'll give it here again. It's interesting. It's definitely different. It's pushing the boundaries. He's making some artistic choices here, but ultimately, it's just not a well written song.
I'm actually surprised somewhat that I don't like it because that Harry Styles album kind of came out of nowhere for me, and that's what it sounded like to me. It was in that ballpark. It sounded like
very
something
retro.
It sounded like something like sort of like a weird updated Beatles song in a way, kind of. That's sort of how I felt about it. But the fact that I was
that's just sort of the Jack White aesthetic, right?
Is it?
Sort of
I don't know.
That gritty, very retro sort of sound. He's using a lot of modern techniques from the production.
Because I was so taken with how Harry Styles approached that.
Yeah.
I was a little bit surprised, but I just legitimately thought it was poorly constructed.
Yes.
Even the mix kind of bothered me, and I'm not saying that. I think that there were some decisions made on purpose. The second verse bothered me. The vocals were so outside of the music; it didn't feel like it fit. It felt like it was sort of an amateur way of doing it. It sounded like I just recorded it on my phone.
Yeah, listen, I think people give a lot of a pass to Jack White, not just because of who he is, but because he is such a creative musician and artist that he does take a lot of chances and a lot of risks, but risks are called risks for a reason.
Right.
Sometimes they don't pay off. And this one for me didn't pay off. Like you can construct a better song out of this while still taking these chances.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it was that great. Now, my personal take on Jack White, much like you, I respect the hell out of Jack White. I think the world, I think the music industry, I think the landscape needs a Jack White, not just because of what he contributes in his music catalog, but even outside of that. He has done so much to give back to the music industry by giving jobs to people in Third Man Records down in Nashville, or he opened his own vinyl plant in Detroit, giving so many people jobs in Detroit, which is fantastic. Like, I think it's so cool that he did that. Even all the way down to keeping a lot of technology alive, a lot of very analog recordings alive, a lot of analog recording equipment. And I just appreciate him, and I think that he's one of the people that I think has no business being as famous as he is.
He is one of those artists. Like,
that's not to his.
He's famous. He's famous, but I don't know if I've ever come across someone who listens to Jack White.
Well, he's famous because he writes very simple songs. I mean, Seven Nation Army, essentially, you can't go to a sporting event without hearing it, and those royalties get paid to somebody.
Right, but it's not. Like, I knew that song for a long time, not knowing who wrote it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's still, like, for whatever reason, Jack White, I don't even know how I know who he is.
Yeah.
Like, because I know that he's good friends with Conan O'Brien. Like, I know that part, but it's like, that song is outside of Jack White for me, where everybody knows it, but they can't tell you who sings it.
Right. He's sort of just the musician's musician, I think, and he's so well respected. And he is a good songwriter. He does. I actually liked his last album. I caught. I don't know if people are aware of this or not. I don't know if they know about it, but a lot of diehard music fans know about it. But Austin City Limits. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
Austin City Limits is a show on PBS. It's on here where we live. It's KZ. It's for free. They do it. They do an entire seasons of it where basically they invite musicians and artists, and oftentimes very notable and modern artists, to come and perform whole live sets, and it's very well produced. And I caught Jack White's performance, and it blew me the fuck away. My God! And he mixes, especially on his solo albums, he mixes gritty rock sort of vibes with a lot of hip hop influence. A lot of his percussion and his beats are very hip hop influence. His rhythms, his all that stuff. Liked his last project. Looking forward to this next one.
And not to say that he doesn't do anything popular, because was it him and Alicia Keys that did that Bond song?
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure they did the Bond song for it wasn't Spectre, because that was Sam Smith. I think they might have done the Quantum of Solace Bond song, him and Alicia Keys. I'm fairly positive.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just not the biggest fan of his music in terms of, it's not something I listen to a lot. That aesthetic that he sort of carries along throughout all of his music, just not that interested in it, me personally, but I get why it appeals to so many people, for sure. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, this is sort of carrying over again from my music episode. One of the biggest news stories this week, an ongoing set of drama between Lana Del Rey and Radiohead. I'll just lay out the story for people. So Radiohead is suing Lana Del Rey because they claim that her song Get Free, the last song in her most recent album, is basically, it was plagiarized from their song Creep, that it sounds too much like Creep. She pretty much ripped it off. She tried to negotiate them down to a 30% royalty rate just to sort of get it to go away, but they claim that it sounds so much like Creep that they want 100% royalty rates. Now,
give me a break.
Another part of the story came out. Well, a few things. First, people might not know this, but the song Creep, they actually were sued because it sounded like another song, and they lost. So Creep is already, by law, by court, it was decided in a court that it is ripping off another song. But the story gets a little bit more strange. Lana Del Rey was very vocal about this whole thing and that she didn't agree with it. She wasn't, didn't think it was cool. And since then, Radiohead have gotten such backlash and sort of negative press from it that they essentially release a press release saying, well, nothing's been done yet. All we've done is talk to her, but we haven't officially lodged a complaint. So they're sort of backtracking on this a little bit. I gave my say on the music episode. You can go listen to it. I might bring it up again, but what is your take on this whole thing?
How dare Radiohead do this? They were the once was, okay? Lana Del Rey is new and fresh, talented singer. Just because you run into the issue, music's just been done, okay? You can't write there's no more riffs you can contribute to society. There's 3 drum beats in general that you could put on any song. We're bound to circle back and make the loop. Certain songs are going to sound like certain other songs. And if anybody should be charged with plagiarism, it is Radiohead for writing the same album 4 times in a row. How dare this band go after this hot, fresh, young artist when they're jealous? They're jealous.
I don't think anybody would have that take.
They've
been celebrated as one of the most original bands to ever live. I would say that they're a timeless band. Their music will sound futuristic even 100 years from now.
Did Radiohead put a patent on droning because Lana Del Rey does some droning in this song? It didn't even sound anything like Creep until the second verse. So how dare they ask for 100% of the royalties? There's no patent pending on droning in music, Radiohead.
But most people are claiming that it's the first verse that is what sounds
second.
Like Creep.
It's second. The second verse legitimately sounds like Creep.
So you listen to both of these songs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've listened to Creep my entire life. I know everything about it.
My take on this song, first of all, Radiohead don't even like the song Creep. They famously just didn't play it for like a decade.
Because other artists are doing it better.
And now they want to make some money off of it. So just to be #transparency, Radiohead are one of my all-time favorite bands, and last year their album A Moon-Shaped Pool was my second favorite album of the year, next to Kanye West's Life of Pablo. And I honestly don't really care for Lana Del Rey that much. I've never really found her music that interesting. However, I take major issue with this whole thing. I listened to both of these songs, and when I heard it, I said to myself, okay, I can kind of see where this song sort of sounds like Creep, but that's it. It's one of those things where I would have heard the song and like months later I would have said, have you ever noticed how the song kind of sounds like Creep? It's interesting, but that's the basis of the whole discussion for me. And my whole thing is, where the fuck do you draw the line? Like, where do you draw the line with things that sound similar to other things? I don't get it.
I mean, my guitarist in my band, Eric, he rips off Mario Kart leads when he writes his music. You don't see Nintendo going after Brave the Storm.
Yeah, I saw a few people in our Facebook group, I think Brando, and I don't know if Eric necessarily was taking up for Radiohead, but he was sort of posing like a devil's advocate question maybe. I just don't. I think it's 2018, and it's not like this was a major hit single that was topping the charts, and they just felt completely aggrieved by the fact that they weren't getting what was due to them. I mean, this is the last song on her album that she may never even play live. Like,
right.
People might not even hear it. I just think it's kind of shitty for a band like Radiohead, who for me personally, I've always championed them as being a very progressive band for so many reasons, but both musically, the content that they make, but outside of that, they've always been very forward thinking in how they distribute music. I mean, they were one of the first major bands to release a surprise album and really challenge the record industry. When they put out In Rainbows, they did a pay whatever you want for it. And they've always used technology and the internet to their advantage. And it just seems like a really kind of douchey thing to do.
Is there some weight to the fact that you are going to eventually get to the point where literally everything that's been done in music has been done? And there are only so many progressions.
Right.
There are only so many things that you can do, and we've talked about how even with rock and how
Yeah.
it's hard to change what's already been done. I mean,
Right.
that genre in general has significantly changed over time, the past several decades, but there's only so many frets. There's only
I mean,
back to what you said, your main point is that your opinion is that it sounds like Creep. It
sort
does.
of. Yeah.
Well, you're right,
Yeah.
and I agree with you 100%. It's just if this becomes the norm,
Yeah.
it's going to get more exhausting because as time goes on, more people can start to say that this is plagiarism. This has this progression.
Yeah.
It's going to get really, really exhausting. So, look, I know that I would be upset if somebody straight up ripped one of my songs. I get it, but
Yeah, a straight up rip.
my impression here is that this shouldn't be tolerated.
Yeah.
And if this was pursued lawfully in court, I would hope that there's just no way that they win. It's just not enough.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I think to answer your question, if you were to take it down to math, and could you potentially just run out of literally ideas down to the mathematic and scientific principle of just the options that you have at your fingertips? Of course, you possibly could. But I mean, we're talking about a number so big, so many factors that could come into play that number just you might as well just say that it's not possible. And the reason of that is then it becomes interpretive. Like, let's say a song is very similar, but it's slightly louder. Well, technically it's different, right? I mean, let's say you throw a distortion on one instrument in one song than another, or you add auto-tune, or you know what I'm saying? There's just so many factors to get into that. But I think you also have to sort of address the fact that Creep is a massive song. It's a huge song.
Beloved song.
And I'm sure that some people have, I've done this. I've been guilty of this when I'm working on a melody or I'm working on a song. I come up with an idea, and after the fact, I'm like, this kind of does sound a little bit like this. Well, naturally, anything that's in your mind, you can only work with what's in your brain.
Right.
This happens in stand-up comedy all the time. People...
I've always been curious, like when I'm watching people like Eric write music, I'm always curious how whatever riff we come up with for our sound, we move forward with, whatever progression becomes Brave the Storms.
Right.
I always think to myself, there's no way that this hasn't been done.
Oh, of course. I mean,
like, it's just a band that we've never heard of from a different era, maybe, but it's like the chances of us genuinely creating something new is very slim.
Right. And I mean, ultimately, the music that I make, I think it's different enough just in the sense that it's, it's a little weird sometimes, but it is 100% an amalgamation of a bunch of ideas and influences. And I fucking celebrate that, man. Like just, I wear my influences on my sleeve. I'm sure you do too. And people should. I think they should. People shouldn't be afraid to tell people what inspired them. You know what I mean? And there's a fine line. You want me to give you 100% an example of somebody that stole music? Led fucking Zeppelin legitimately stole some of their biggest songs they've ever written. They stole them. I mean, it exists out there.
And going back to like something like Tarantino, whereas like Tarantino has been known to just publicly copy something. And
or what's his name? What's his name? Witwicky from Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah,
that's different. He straight up plagiarized.
Exactly. Yeah,
but
that's what I'm talking about.
No, you were talking about wearing your influences on your sleeve.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, like, if I'm the only person that can write a song that mixes Linkin Park with Seosin, like, who else is going to who else is gonna sort of combine those two things? And if anyone's
Great
going
point.
to do it, it's going to be me. And so I will be the one to sort of give that fresh sound, and maybe be the only person that gives you that fresh sound.
If we are going to set a precedent and award Radiohead for this, people like Sam Esmail better fucking
Run.
count every dollar that he's made, because
Right.
that guy is somebody that unapologetically, again, wears his influences on his sleeve.
Right.
Very, very apparently. But it's, yeah, and that's the other thing too. Where do we draw the line with paying homage? Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, should we not do that? I don't think so. In 2018, actually, this is just my own personal just take in general. Like, I think anytime somebody creates art, it's something new that came from their brain. Even though it might have existed in another realm or another way and shape and form, creativity comes from a place that you just can't quantify. And even though it might have been buried in the back of your mind, it's still finding its way to the forefront. And I think that's something that we should celebrate.
It's so, to continue on the point that I made, it's really interesting only because art as we know it is still kind of young in a sense. Like, on the grand timeline of existence, we have so much more,
Especially
left to do.
Yeah, especially to be commoditized.
It's like, there in 500 years, it's possible that there's a song that accidentally, maybe straight up, is just someone wrote "Creep."
Right.
Like, think of how insane that might be. Like, 500 years from now, a band writes a song, and it could literally be, but without them knowing it, identical to what "Creep" is.
It happens.
Like,
It happens in stand-up comedy all the time.
Yeah.
People will literally write jokes
Right.
that are almost identical to another, and they don't even know that they've quote unquote stolen a joke.
Yeah, Amy Schumer.
Well, I think some people. I don't think she knew about it, but her writers definitely knew about it. Anyways, that's all I've got for music. For more on this whole subject, check out the music episode. I went on a whole rant that I didn't go on here. I don't need to take a break.
I don't either. You want to talk about movies?
Sure. What are we talking about?
I've got a couple. I just want to kind of talk about the release dates of the whole release date mix up that we have here. Actually, I want to pose a question here first.
Oh, you mean
because
the release dates of the movies in 2018 who are going to be taking the pop culture crown?
Yes. Well, one of them is no longer a movie of 2018, but we'll get to that in a minute. Amongst the fan community, there's been a lot of chatter, desire to see Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine now that
Yeah, I like
Disney is about to acquire Fox after the whole legal mumbo jumbo goes through. There's an opposing view that because Logan was so perfect, that a great ending for the character, a great ending for the actor, that he shouldn't taint what Logan is just to be an Avengers film.
How would it taint it?
Because it did justice to the character. And
Right.
So my point is, and I think Sebastian Stan, our Winter Soldier, recently said that he knows that Hugh Jackman is considering it. I don't know if they spoke at the Golden Globes.
He's publicly made that statement that the only way he would ever reprise the role.
But that was before.
Right.
But then he put the kibosh on that. Now, that was the first question that he was asked after how it was acquired, and he said no, that he was fine with Logan being it. But and again, even that was made like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So within 2 or 3 weeks ago, we went from Hugh Jackman not going to be Wolverine, and now Sebastian Stan says, I know that he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes another thing is if this would actually happen, if Disney would ask for that, if they would write him a role in another Avengers movie, because they just wrapped filming Avengers 4, which I can't even remember. I don't know what the release date for that is. I don't know if it's next year or if it's in like 2 or 3 years. I can't remember.
It was in 2020.
I can't remember. It's escaped me. But well, it's not next year because it's like Captain Marvel and all that. But anyway, it's one thing for it to actually happen, but I want to know what your take is. Maybe not. It doesn't even have to be this specific example. what's your take on his return to the character being a tainting Logan and what that accomplished? Because I'm reading that. I read someone's take on Twitter, and I'm thinking, you know what? I think this is one of those cases where even if he does come back, you do always have Logan. It's like,
well, yeah,
Logan is there, and it's like it doesn't, and it can retcon it in a sense because Hugh Jackman can come back as Logan and play a younger Logan. Like it's not going to. It doesn't have to necessarily retcon the death or ruin the story points that were made in Logan, but
we're also dealing with multiple timelines, multiple dimensions. Like
and I think that's only part of it too. Like even that aspect of it removed, like the continuity errors, things like that. I think it's based purely off the fact that they thought Logan was such a great representation of the character and a great way.
I'm done with romanticism. I am Jaye Williams 2018 anti-romantic. Not in my personal life, but anti-romantic.
Let's get Kayla in here. Kayla!
Anti-romanticism. And this is a romantic idea. First of all, anybody that would have an issue with this, money says fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, no one gives a fuck about your feelings. I wrote that in a song. Fuck your feelings.
Well, actually, I would argue, I think that the majority of fans want to see him come back.
Right.
I know that there are some people who are, like you said, romantic about it and would go, but
you're always going to have that movie. Listen.
Yeah, I agree.
In my opinion, only one Matrix film exists. There were 2 others. I don't care about those.
Right.
At this point, I don't give a shit about the prequels for Star Wars. Just don't care.
And some people would argue, like, maybe not this specific example, but there are franchises where people say the second and third movie ruined the first for me.
Right.
And with that, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that at all. Like, there are people, I don't know if there are people that think, I don't know, another poor example, Blade Runner 2049 totally negates what was done in the first Blade Runner.
I mean, look at the Batman.
It doesn't have to.
I think Batman Returns is somewhat of a polarizing film, but I mean, the other Batman films that came out in the Michael Keaton era and, Batman Forever, Batman, what's the other one? Batman and Robin, like people don't care about that. Like they just don't care.
And there's another side of it too, where they would be cautious or weary of them just recasting him in general.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people.
Did we talk about Mission Impossible 2? Did that ruin the? You know what I'm saying?
There are people. I'm sure those people would just prefer a recasting of Wolverine, but it's like.
I don't mind that either.
But that's another thing too. Like, I don't have a problem with that necessarily. I expect it to happen.
Right.
Just that's the way of the world. But that doesn't guarantee that you're gonna like that Wolverine, or they don't do it justice.
Or utilizing X-23 in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
It is going to be interesting to see how Cable plays into this, even though Josh Brolin is playing 2 characters potentially within the same universe. But.
I guess it wasn't specifically about Hugh Jackman. I brought this up mainly just as that discussion point.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that newer movies can necessarily taint the older ones for any particular reason? And I just don't think that they have to. I mean, I think that's a choice if you let it bother you.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, every case is probably going to be slightly different. I mean, I'm sure there's some instances where the second film maybe illuminated something about the previous film that I wasn't privy to, and I might not enjoy it or something like that. But it doesn't really bother me. But and the world is much bigger than just a handful of people's opinions. So I don't care one way or the other. I would love to see Wolverine of some sort, whether it's Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, that's definitely who it should be. I don't care who it is. They should. But Zac Efron also has to be Batman. But anyways,
Jesus Christ.
I just want to see him in this universe. I would love for Captain America and Iron Man to die. And for Wolverine to carry the mantle, especially because he was such a prominent member of the Avengers in the comic books. I think he was the leader of the Avengers at one point in the comic books.
I think so.
Kevin Marks, correct me.
Zac Efron, if he grows out his hair, I think he would pull off Nightwing.
Yeah.
I would rather that happen. I know that you're joking, but
No, not necessarily. I'm not joking.
you're not joking about Zac Efron playing fucking Batman, Jay.
No, not at all. 100% no. I think Batman, one of the biggest problems with Batman over the course of every film except for Batman Begins sort of had it right. I think Batman's been a little too old for my take.
I don't have a problem. It's not the age where I don't think he's a good enough actor.
Oh, I think he's a fantastic actor.
I don't think he's a bad actor.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a good enough actor to convince me that he is Batman.
I mean, we haven't
just
had
don't-
a great list to choose from.
I just don't get it.
Christian Bale is a really good actor, but I didn't think his portrayal of Batman or Bruce Wayne. It might have been my least favorite thing.
He is not.
Ben Affleck, it was all right.
I don't know what it is, and people are going to maybe crucify me with this because The Dark Knight is held to such high regard, but I don't see.
We like to run in the opposite
I don't think
direction of
Christian
what everybody else
Bale
thinks.
is iconic as Batman.
I don't either.
Like,
I agree
again,
with you
he's a great
100%.
actor, but it's like I don't know what he specifically brought. I like the idea of Christopher Nolan seeing American Psycho and being like, yes, that is Bruce Wayne in a less exaggerated way of speaking. And I dig that a lot. And I think him as Batman is best in Batman Begins.
100% agree.
Mainly because
he's in the movie the most.
Batman is
Yeah, he's
which is funny because that's the origin story.
they're not in Batman and / Bruce Wayne are not in a lot of The Dark Knight and
Dark Knight Rises.
Which is fine. I don't care, but
It's just for some reason, even though I love that trilogy a lot, it's like I'm not ever really talking about how great Christian Bale is. It's more of like a Christopher Nolan thing and just the kind of character in general.
the movie overshadows the character.
The reinvigoration of the genre, like all that stuff gets brought up, and I don't know how much I don't think I've ever argued about like him being the best Batman necessarily.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's that hard of a choice.
I mean, I sort of joked about it, but I think most people. Well, I'm not gonna say that. I think a lot of people would agree. I think you could make the argument that the most iconic Batman is Ben Affleck, just because I think his portrayal of Bruce Wayne was pretty good, and actually Ben Affleck in the Batman suit probably had the most character that I've ever seen have. But
Yes.
with that being said, I'll be honest too. I think just in general, the Batman bar is a little low.
So if you had asked me prior to Batfleck,
Right.
who's your favorite Batman? I would say Christian Bale easily.
Yeah.
Christian Bale is my Batman prior to Batfleck, but it would be more so because of the films that he is in.
Right.
Like, I know that feels weird. Do you understand that?
I mean,
like, do you get what I'm saying?
Kind of my favorite, even though I'm down on this band, my favorite brand new song is a different song than what my number 2 favorite song of all time is, which is another brand new song. So it doesn't have to make sense. It's okay.
I think I follow that.
My number 2 favorite song of all time is Play Crack. No,
I thought that was your number one.
It's Play Crack the Sky. No, my number 1 favorite song of all time is Round Here by Counting Crows. Number 2 is Play Crack the Sky.
Yeah.
But my favorite brand new song of all time is DeGosser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Gosser's a great song.
It is a great
Those
song,
are
but we
both
don't
great
like that
songs.
band anymore.
No, I'll listen to those songs.
Yeah, see, I'm still not there yet.
Say I'll listen to their.
I get it. Still not there though.
It's fine. To each their own. Did we talk about the Golden Globes? We did.
Not yet, but real quick,
I didn't know if we did on after.
we have a few movie things that we need to talk about. One, no, we did, because the Golden Globes hadn't happened yet. One, I just watched The Avengers for the second time ever
Oh, really?
yesterday. Yeah. Well, actually, it was over the course of the last few days.
Movie opens with a hell of a car chase sequence.
So, my take on the Avengers now, updated opinion, which I think I'm gonna do more of this year. In fact, I might end up making some videos about it. But the Avengers is a really fun film, but I don't think it's a great movie. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Actually, let me flip that around. It's a fun movie. It's not a great movie. The narrative is so thin in that film.
It is.
the story. Yeah,
which doesn't necessarily bother
it's
me.
fine. It doesn't have to
If
be.
you wanted to, I mean,
it's an event movie.
something like Drive. Like if
How do we get from
because it's such a
Avengers
it's
to
such
Drive?
it's a thin narrative in the sense that it's very simplistic and it's very quick.
Yeah,
it's
a very
quick
singular
package.
story. Yeah,
So it's not necessary. I don't necessarily mind how easy the film is, especially when so much time is spent bringing the characters together and getting to play. It's a sandbox movie. It's Joss Whedon, and he does it properly. I think it was an experiment because it was sort of the first of its kind. I will give it all the credit in the world for spoiling us, because now it's so easy to forget that just 5 years ago it had never been done before.
right.
And now we're getting, the 18th Marvel movie.
Right.
It's easy to we have just been spoiled since the Avengers, and I think sometimes we forget, or maybe I forget to give it the credit that it deserves. I think it's a incredibly rewatchable film, but I don't know if we wanted to argue best comic book movies of all time,
No.
I have no problem leaving the Avengers out of my top 5. I mean, that doesn't compute for me. Whereas some people, and I don't have a problem if someone wanted to. Like, you're not gonna hear me bash that movie if you wanted to say this is my number 1 because of everything that it accomplished. So I'm just simply comparing it to what I think it makes a proper film, a great film. It doesn't check those boxes, but it checks all these other boxes over here that maybe that prestige film can't do necessarily.
Let me throw out a few more takes that were updated.
It's a different animal.
And sort of noticed from rewatching this movie. One, Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, the 3 characters that were handled previously to this film, were some of the worst versions of themselves that I've ever seen in their movies. Tony Stark as Iron Man in this movie was so, like, it was like he was giving you the greatest hits of Tony Stark, and I thought that and I just rewatched Iron Man 1, which is hilarious.
Great movie.
He just wasn't like, it just felt like I was watching like some Christmas special where he showed up for a few days to play Tony Stark. That was very odd for me.
Really?
Yeah. And Captain America was just so I think the funny thing about having seen the rest of the films that he's been involved with, he was just so uninteresting in that movie. Like, he's so more intricate and deep in Winter Soldier, obviously. And obviously in Civil War and just other movies he's been involved with. And Thor also very, very just bland. Such a bland character.
I mean, I don't think that was ever the point, really.
It wasn't, except, now here's the other one. Mark Ruffalo, hands down, stole the movie. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, he acted his fucking ass off.
That wasn't my immediate. That wasn't ever my takeaway in the movie. I think Hulk steals the show, and I think that was sort of the unanimous.
I'm talking Bruce fucking Banner.
Right.
He was so troubled.
Yeah.
We got one of the most serious moments I think we've ever gotten in the MCU. Him talking about trying to commit suicide in that film.
Yes.
His delivery of that whole story was amazing, and how he was constantly struggling with the fact that he had tried to seek peace and inner peace and stay away from people. His character was just so phenomenal in the movie, and it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed just rewatching that movie specifically for that.
What'd you think? Isn't it funny how much time is spent on that helicarrier? I mean, I think it's the meat of the film, but you also have to like fix that propeller for like 20 minutes.
I had forgotten how long it was.
I was gonna say, when you look at it like on paper,
there's only
actually
like 3 sets in the whole movie.
Essentially, yeah.
The opening one, the helicarrier, and New York City.
Right.
That's it. What is this?
But
The Force Awakens?
that is a lot of fun, though.
No, it's a fun movie. Of course it is. And like you said, it has a lot of rewatch.
I think the part that and I think this warrants another rewatch from myself as well. I think the part I'm surprised to hear you say, even though I think I agree with the fact that, yeah, of course, in this type of movie, you're going to have to thin out the characters.
Right.
But what I remember about the movie is how there were great moments between all of the characters, and there were several scenes even back then that were setting up the divide between Tony Stark and Cap.
Oh, absolutely.
I think about some really great dialogue between them on the bridge. So that's what I remember fondly, even though they might not all be, character explorations, if you will, but there's some really, really strong nuggets too.
I'm going to rewatch Age of Ultron next, and then, of course, I'm going to rewatch the third Avengers film, Captain America Civil War. But I also think it's funny to watch these, and one of the reasons I'm picking up on these characters being so uninteresting, I don't even necessarily mean thin, because they have a rich backstory, obviously, because we have all these other films. I just think that they were just a little bit uninteresting. And the fact that I think Civil War, and that's the thing that I've seen the most, I've rewatched that movie probably 4 or 5 times. That movie handles its characters so well. For the limited amount of screen time that all of those characters in that movie have, for the most part, think about how much we learn about Black Panther in the very short amount of time we get with them. Think about how well and accurately Ant-Man was portrayed. Paul Rudd portraying Ant-Man in that film. I had never saw Ant-Man when I saw Civil War, and then when I went back and watched it, it was just like so seamless.
Right.
I think, obviously that speaks to what are those guys' names? The Duffer Brothers. Them doing Age of Ultron. So I'm excited. I'm in Marvel mode all year, much to the chagrin of Kayla. I don't think she's on board, but
and that's why you'll hear no arguing from me when it comes to Civil War versus the Avengers. I think Civil War is the better.
It's the best Avengers film.
It's the better film.
Right. That movie is a movie that gets not quite as good the more you watch it, though.
Civil War?
Yeah, there's some things about it. There's some
I have a great time every time I watch
Absolutely.
it. I think it's very well done.
The opening, essentially, the first half of that movie is essentially flawless. I think it has pacing issues towards the end. After the airport scene.
Just because there's another ending that's tacked on.
Yeah, after the airport scene, it's like, I don't know, it just seems like it drags a little bit. But the entire events of when Captain America finds Bucky, which then goes into that rooftop fight scene between Bucky and Black Panther, into the chase.
Yeah.
That entire sequence, some of the best things I've ever seen in comic book film.
Yeah.
Period. It's so exciting. It's so much fun. Even though I think they look ridiculous when they're running faster than cars. I still stand behind that.
Really? That doesn't bother me.
It really bothers me, but that's okay.
I think it looks really cool, actually. I think it looks. I do.
Thinking about it makes me laugh.
I think it looks better than seeing them like run against the green screen or anything like that. But I remember they first did that. I don't know if this was the first movie that did it, but it was the first time I had seen it done. Was in Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
when Blonsky takes the super soldier serum as well, and he's fighting the Hulk on campus. You see him, and you watch the behind the scenes. He's on like a track,
right?
And it's just pulling him forward, and all he's doing is moving his legs. So it's actually them doing all that stuff. They're just being dragged on a cable above them, sort of like how dogs have cables that go from one fence post to another in backyards. But anyway, I think it looks pretty natural, actually. But
yeah, I
get it.
Should I make some videos on our YouTube channel, just leading up to?
No, that's my thing.
Well, I'm definitely going to be updating my opinion on these.
Do it. I would love to hear you update your opinion. Actually, we probably should have planned that better, because I think there are a couple people that are watching them week to week. Because
I'm not doing that. I'm watching them when I have free time, and I'm only watching the ones, for the most part, that are already available to me.
Will you watch the first
Avengers?
Watch the first Thor.
I still need to see the first Avenger. I've still never seen Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh, well, watch all those. Phase 1 is so much fun to watch now.
See, it bums me out.
It's just because it's different.
It is. What's up with Paramount? I didn't know the Paramount had all that to do with all that stuff.
Paramount had distribution of I think was Avengers the last.
Avengers definitely had the Paramount tag before.
Avengers was the last one.
So all of Phase 1.
I don't think Iron Man 3 had it. It was just Phase 1. Yeah.
Never seen Iron Man 3.
What was the movie topic? Okay.
I still want to talk to you about Back to the Future too. So
we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
So just so we got to have something concrete to put in the title of the podcast. So let's or something current anyway. So anyway, I just want to talk about some of the shuffling here and what it means overall and what we think it might mean. So Deadpool 2 gets moved up 2 weeks. So it is sitting between Avengers Infinity War and Solo, which makes May like the dopest May I can remember in summer movie history.
It's crazy.
Back to back to back. So
wait, we get what's the order here? We
Infinity War, Deadpool 2, Solo, back to back.
It could be best to worst.
Yeah, it could.
It could. What if it's not? What if it's the opposite? What if Han Solo blows us the fuck away? You know what? This is
hold on.
This is the type of optimism that I like. From my own mouth.
There hasn't. I think you're being a little bit too optimistic. I'm not saying you're wrong. Of course, Solo can be good.
Right.
Of course. But nothing at all has happened to prove it. We still don't have a trailer. We haven't seen it, to be fair. We still don't have a trailer. The fact that they're hiding it from us, the fact that they are keeping this release date to our knowledge,
super bizarre.
And the fact that we've only heard on 2 separate occasions that Alden Ehrenreich is not pulling this off. We heard it before Ron Howard was hired as director, and we've heard it again since that. That is a concern. And the fact that they haven't moved the release date, I mean, part of me thinks that Star Wars and Lucasfilm just want to get this over with. And again, I'm fine with saying that when this trailer comes out and if it shows me something special, I hope that I'm wrong. But as it sits right now, I'm just having a really hard time being optimistic about it. And all of that aside, I was always still on board with the fact that they should have just kept December. And I know that episode 9 is a December date, which makes Solo again make less sense that it's staying in May because it's just an outlier for whatever reason. And it's not like they're trying to hit the anniversary date because the 40th anniversary was 2017.
Right.
So I just don't know what reason there is to do that unless there's some plan involved and put into place. We have Rian Johnson's Dune trilogy on the horizon, and we inevitably have more standalones.
Yeah.
The only reason why I can see them having made this May release date is if they're hiding more plans so that it becomes 2 movies a year. But again, that's not public knowledge yet.
Yeah, my whole issue with the dialogue centered around the film are people. I called Ari Papermaster out on our Facebook group because, and if anybody else were to make these same sort of claims, I'm ready. You can't fucking judge something based on pure speculation. You just can't. I mean, it's just plain and simple. You can. I like where you're at though. I do like.
It's just hard to feel good.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. It's hard. It's hard to write a positive narrative about it for sure, but you can't completely write off that something is bad simply because of news coming out about it. Think about all the stories in general of film that are negative. First of all, what do you think sells on Movie Talk, on podcasts like this? Bad news makes great ratings for people. We live in a fear-mongering news cycle, keeping people afraid in general. And what I really mean is the negativity about things. People love that juicy gossip.
Right.
I want people to be more informed about the fact that you can't just judge something based on the news surrounding it. I mean, you know, and I keep going back to the example of Wonder Woman every time I talk about this. The news surrounding Wonder Woman and I was guilty of it. I was guilty of saying that I was concerned that the movie might not be good. That's completely wrong. And
Right.
everybody was wrong about that film. So I just hope people give it a chance. I don't want them going into the movie theater already with their nose turned up at it.
And again, I mean, you're absolutely right, because a lot of people were worried about that film, Wonder Woman. But at the same time, it's like even the situation's a little bit different because, again, it's just dominoes falling around Han Solo. Whereas
We need a trailer.
it's been for the past couple of years, it's been dominoes are falling about Han Solo.
Right.
There was never there wasn't any of that at all for Wonder Woman. It was just a leaked report of someone's opinion.
Yeah.
So
and also
I
do the DC negativity in general.
Right. I think that there's even now, even in retrospect, I think there's more weight to Han Solo being bad than there was Wonder Woman at the time, even though there was probably a version of a conversation like, should we be worried about Wonder Woman because of everything else?
Think about the lead up to the Batman when it comes out. Like prior to getting a trailer silence people. They silence doubters. But think about all the negative news that's come out about the Batman, and like leading up to that film, I feel like people are going to be. They should, if they're down about Solo right now, prior to a trailer, people should be as worried about this Batman film, with the exception of the fact that Matt Reeves is attached to direct.
Latest report is that Reeves' Batman will be outside DCEU continuity.
Okay.
So Batfleck will still be a thing, but not in his movies.
Yeah.
His movies are going to exist outside of everything else that's
When
going
is
on.
that on the slate to release?
It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt Reeves said he was outlining the movie. And I was like, Jesus, I thought we were farther along than that. That means there's no fucking script yet.
Right.
Jesus, fuck.
But that is his next project.
Yeah.
That's a long time then to be between projects, it seems. For a director of his caliber, I mean, he's one of the hottest directors on the market right
maybe
now.
with this project, I mean, Batman in general, even before him, it's taking a whole lot longer to get off the ground than it should due to the Batfleck popularity, but it's about right for a filmmaker once they get onto a project, spend a year on it, and then a year in production, and then a year in post. It's
but when are we
2 to 3 years.
When are we going to get to see Matt Reeves direct one of Rian Johnson's Star Wars movies? Why did I say that weird?
I don't know. That'd be hella
I feel like that's a match made in heaven.
tight.
All right, so what else is moving? Let's get through the movie.
So anyway,
come on, hurry up. Don't we get enough of this from Collider? He's getting self-conscious about it.
people like our fresh takes on movies.
I know, but we're rambly.
We're not. Jaye Williams. I would love to trim 20 minutes of fat off of this podcast. That's an off-air discussion. So the last thing I want to bring up is New Mutants is no longer in 2018. Did you know that?
That's good. I wasn't high on that movie.
Yeah, but okay, take that outside of it.
People like our fresh take.
Imagine that movie is coming out, and it's supposedly coming out, or was originally coming out in early 2018. I could never be a studio head.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine seeing a film and being like, oh, it can wait another fucking year?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah,
And
that is very odd because we already have a trailer. Hear that, Han Solo?
like, put it out.
The trailer's been playing before movies.
Put it out. Like, I understand, like, we want to push it. Let's push it out to August. Okay. A whole other year?
That's what's
pushing it
crazy.
out?
I literally
Nuts.
When did I see that trailer? I think it was before. Was it? Did we see it before Star Wars?
It came out in like October or November.
Yeah,
I mean, it was.
But I mean, I saw it before a movie. You usually don't see.
I don't remember it before Star Wars. That's not.
I definitely saw it before something. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
It's
But,
just it's hilarious to me.
Right, but anyway,
I think that movie is going to be. I'm going to predict something right now. I don't think it's going to. I don't know if it'll be bad, but I think financially it will be one of the lowest earning superhero related movies.
Maybe
that's
I think.
ever come out.
I mean, it's to its benefit. It has mutants in the title.
It'll be sub 100 million.
Like
for
if
sure.
it was an X-Men movie that didn't have the title X-Men in it, and if it didn't have the word mutants in it,
right,
then that would be really interesting.
Right.
But since it has mutants in there, I think it's still gonna be okay.
But you could have any horror movie with the word mutant in it and
So
sell it.
it's reported that they're doing it because horror has been stepping up its game in the past couple of years.
Right.
In 2016, I was really high on a couple of horror movies. And I'm usually not. 2016.
I know, but I'm just saying it in 2017 absolutely fucking crushed it. So
I mean, horror in general in 2017 was great, but even like 2016, I was really high on like movies like Don't Breathe, and Conjuring 2 was also out that year, and like Lights Out did really well. And so just the past couple of years, horror has been. It's reported that they're going back to the drawing board. Well, not completely. They want to make the film scarier to compete with all of these horror films. And where I'm at is I don't know if they have to, unless the movie just simply isn't good. If the movie just didn't test well, then okay. But when you're talking about specifically doctoring it to make it scarier, not doctoring it to make it better.
Yeah, the story needs to be there.
And I'm not saying that they're sacrificing story. I just think that mentality is interesting because you already have and own the angle of being a superhero horror movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that I would think that when you make a New Mutants, at least in my head, it would be, how do I compete with other superhero movies? Let's make it the horror superhero movie, which they've already accomplished. I think it's interesting that they're now using it to compete with just horror in general. That's just fascinating to me, and it's an interesting approach. So, and again, there might be more to it. Apparently, it's not testing. It didn't test as high as they thought, so maybe they'll just kind of do a rework in general. But that particular approach interests me, that they would compete with horror as opposed to superhero.
I'm just curious. One thing, I'm really curious actually, because I feel like X-23 is a character that Fox or Disney, whoever, I know the Disney deal still has to fully go through to be finalized, but I feel like they need to capitalize on that as quick as possible, because I mean the Logan was did fantastic, critically well received as well. I feel like they need to figure out a way, and I think we might see it sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised if we get something X-23 related in Deadpool and Cable.
Okay.
Just because, even if it was just like a silly sort of thing, but I mean, you never really know. Just with Cable playing around in that sandbox, he could get her involved very quickly.
I wish there was a way to incorporate her into New Mutants. Like if New Mutants, was a direct sequel to Logan. Like maybe something happens once they cross into Eden, like someone actually captures them. And
they use the term New Mutants in Logan.
And it wasn't even, that's not why I was coming.
Of course, I know. But
it didn't have to be that on the nose.
Though.
Yeah, it didn't have to be that on the nose.
Right.
Just any way to kind of incorporate her because she did such a great job.
Even if it was acknowledged that it was in a similar timeline.
Yeah. The other thing too,
that's the thing you always have to question about these movies. Like, when is this taking place?
Right, and maybe that might get changed with Disney. That's the other issue too, is that because they're pushing it out, it runs the risk of
the deal becoming complete
and maybe not getting released at all, or released even later, or changed entirely. And it's like, well, I mean, even what that movie represents, even though
it's got a solid cast.
It's that, but it's also just what it represents as far as again, it's the variety of the genre, and it's the fact that it looks fresh, and it's like part of me is curious about how, like, again, I don't know the quality of it, but I would have loved to have seen it come out in April, just because in this year we're getting so much superhero goodness this year. I would have loved for that movie to have stood out and been different.
I agree with that. When is Dark Phoenix? Is that this year?
November, I believe.
Really?
November. That still hasn't budged. The other thing too, and then the
heat meter, no pun intended. Little.
Gotta see trailer.
it's just coming off the back of Apocalypse.
Yeah, Apocalypse is garbage.
One of the only superhero movies I've ever just legitimately turned it off. I'm not watching this anymore.
And Gambit, even though it solidified a release date, I believe, Gore Verbinski is no longer a director, so they're back to the drawing board there. But that's another movie I'm excited about. I know it's a punchline, I know it's a joke, but
yeah,
I'm ready for that.
Interesting character. Not sure a ton of people care.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
it's not a headliner.
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised he's never been utilized more in an X-Men film.
He's a fan favorite amongst X-Men fans, no doubt about it. Kevin Marks, you don't have to correct me.
He seems like the type of character you build off of an ensemble film, and then do
they tried
your spinoff.
With Origins, but
well, it was a bad time in my boy's career.
Riggins,
yeah. Wasn't he just in something recently?
He was in. He was the villain in American Assassin, that Dylan O'Brien, Michael Keaton agent movie that came out this past fall. I think he was the villain in that movie.
Interesting. Let's. Are you done? Are we done?
Yeah, let's talk about.
Well, I gotta take a break.
Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, that's right. Let's talk about Back to the Future real quick. I didn't really mean to update my opinion on this movie. I was just looking for something to watch, and all 3 Back to the Future films are available on HBO. And I found out Kayla hadn't seen them before. She'd seen bits and pieces of them, but never really saw them. I love Back to the Future. Not only do I love Back to the Future, it's one of the movies that I hold really close to my chest. Like, I'm a massive fan of it. I would get tattoos of Back to the Future stuff. I would have posters of Back to the Future stuff. I just really love the franchise. Now, going into it, my ranking was 3 was my least favorite.
Okay.
Then 1 and 2 was my favorite going into it. 2 was the thing that I had so many memories about. 2 was the thing that I could quote the most. And I loved Back to the Future 2.
Okay.
So we sit down, we watch Back to the Future 1, and I forgot how much I love this movie.
Yes.
I mean, I love it to begin with, but I forgot how much I loved it. And Kayla was all about it, man. She
had fun?
She had a lot of fun. And not only that, but I didn't remember. I forgot that 1 literally ends, and we'll talk more about this in a second. 1 legitimately ends with the beginning of Back to the Future 2, which at the time is fascinating.
Just with a different what's her name. That's about it. It's the recast.
Yeah, that is fascinating to think about. So I'm eager to get into 2. That's my favorite one. Start 2. Loving every second of it. Love going into the future. Love all of this stuff. And then I remember, I think I realized that I completely forgot that there was another half of this film. They barely spend any time in the future. They spend a very, very limited, because listen, the hoverboard chase scene is that whole sequence starting in the diner.
Yeah.
The 80s diner is flawless. And it's so smart how they handle the stuff in the 80s. And it's actually kind of smart that they don't spend too much time in there, because I'm sure it could have gotten very hokey very fast. The budget on some of that stuff probably had to be increased. The flying DeLorean in general. But after that, first of all, I completely forgot they went back to 1955. I completely just forgot about it.
In Back to the Future 2.
And I just because I remember them going back into 85 when it was like Donald Trump's world, when it was Biff.
Right.
Yeah, Biff is Donald Trump. By the way, side note, did you know that I've randomly went on a Donald Trump rant on my music show?
No.
Super out of character for me. You should set aside some time to listen to it.
Give me the timestamp.
It's actually pretty funny. Anyways, I remembered that, but I forgot all the other stuff. The other half of that movie is kind of boring. It's kind of boring, and it's just not nearly as memorable as the future, the stuff that happens in the future.
I remember. I need to rewatch it, but I don't remember liking the movie nearly as much as the first one. Something about it.
I love that future, the stuff in the future.
But I think that's a.
I love the flying DeLorean. I love the hoverboard.
I think that's part of the conversation, though. I don't know what it is about. Like, it's interesting to me that obviously we've lived through that era that they're representing.
Mhm.
And part of me, it's funny because that's the part that feels dated to me. It's like,
Wait.
I don't have a problem going back into the 50s and the first Back to the Future.
Right. It's the representation of what they feel like the future is going to look like.
And I don't know, I get it. It's supposed to be fun, but
Right.
I remember just kind of watching the movie and just kind of like,
It's very clever how it's done.
I don't know. I guess I need to rewatch it, but it didn't. Not that I hated it, not that I disliked it. It just didn't hit. It didn't feel like the first Back to the Future in a very obvious, apparent reason. But.
Yeah, the opening is just so much fun. Now, another thing that I forgot, much like the first one. So a few things happened in the second one that were very interesting to me. Again, they end the second one. Now, we haven't rewatched the third one. I'll give my updated opinion on that too. But they end the second one with a cliffhanger. With spoiler alert, I guess you've never seen Back to the Future 2. They end with a cliffhanger because Doc Brown gets hit by lightning and shot somewhere in time, and Marty is stranded back in 1955. That's how the movie ends.
Right.
That they have to go back into like Old West times. And that's crazy, again, that they sort of serialize it like that, an episodic sort of format. They also, another thing they do is they end the movie with a next time on Back to the Future. And they show like an entire trailer for the third movie at the end of the film.
Did they film did they film them together?
I guess so, man.
I think they
did. It was crazy. They must have, and here's why. Throughout the entire movie of Back to the Future 2, and I thought they were just being clever about this, but they must have filmed it because there was so much foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Kayla's not listening to this right now. So, for instance, Biff is watching I guess a Dirty Harry movie, some sort of Clint Eastwood movie, where there's a shootout and Clint Eastwood gets shot, but he's wearing the medal underneath.
Right.
That happens in the next movie, and Doc Brown talks about wanting to go back to the Old West and work on his love life, and of course all that stuff happens too. So it's just fascinating that they were doing that back then. And for the people that talk about rehashes of Force Awakens, if you love Back to the Future, you cannot use that argument anymore, because all three of those movies are the exact same movies, and just they literally do the same thing. It's part of the joke. It becomes part of the joke. Like, it's just different characters doing slightly different things in all three movies. But yeah, I just found it fascinating, man.
And if you voted for Trump but enjoyed the Lego movie, then you're a hypocrite.
Yeah, that too. One other thing about watching that movie as a kid, the guy that plays Biff, when I was a kid, I thought that it was amazing that they found some younger actor to play him.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it, I'm like, holy shit, in 55, that guy was that age when he was I had no idea. And it's just hilarious to me. Like, it's really, really good. It's clever how they did it. They made everybody look older and modern.
Right.
It's just fascinating. What a great film. What a great franchise.
Oh, you like that?
Kathleen Kennedy attached. Steven Spielberg attached. Robert Zemeckis.
Doesn't get any better.
I mean, it's great. It's fantastic. It's a classic. Easily a classic.
I love how Kathleen Kennedy was the first name you threw out. Like, okay, she produced the film, but it's Steven Spielberg presents.
She's the biggest of the three. She's the most important of those three. Steven Spielberg's overrated. It's my hot take.
My God.
Yeah. You like E.T. is a turd walking around with eyes? Okay, whatever. You like AI? Shawshank Redemption, it's a movie about people being in prison.
He didn't direct that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. What's his name?
Frank Darabont.
R.L. Stein. Oh, what's the guy's name? Wrote that? Stephen King. Overrated. No, I'm just kidding. Stephen King. Stephen King, better than Steven Spielberg. The better of the Stevens. It's not even Stevens over here.
Wrong.
What else did Steven Spielberg do?
Let's go to break.
What else did he do? He did Indiana Jones, overrated. I don't like living in the past. That's all Steven Spielberg does, except for Ready Player One.
Let's go to break.
All right, we'll be right back. The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more Sight and Sound goodness. I have good news for you. Are you ready? I actually watched some of a video that you put up on our YouTube channel.
I don't believe that for a second.
And it was about this Electric Dreams thing. So you started off talking about people being frustrated and annoyed with you because you didn't watch Black Mirror first and you watched this instead. I'm one of those people. I was so annoyed that you just didn't watch Black Mirror, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. I get it.
You know what annoys me?
Actually, I don't get it, but go ahead.
You know what annoys me is that...
You don't have to do anything.
Well, but it's one thing to be like, hey, you should check this out, like as a recommendation, but it's like, I am annoyed and I get exhausted when people keep trying to drill it. Like, yes, we're all trying to tell each other what we should and shouldn't watch.
Right.
And you might say that's hypocritical. You have a podcast talking about what, but it's like, I talk about it on the podcast. Generally, you guys should be interested in Mr. Robot, but it's like, I'm not the guy that's constantly tweeting at people or getting mad at people for not having watched Mr. Robot. I don't want to do that. It's exhausting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all trying to get each other to watch what we're watching. I get it.
Right.
It's fine. I have literally nothing against Black Mirror. I will get to it when I get to it. There's a certain, and I know Black Mirror season 4 just came out. I get it. I missed it.
Yeah, I get it.
I missed when it was hot, but there's so much TV all the time that sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. I'm trying to stay caught up as much as possible. So
Black Mirror is this year's Basement in North Lane.
Well, I was thinking about it.
How many episodes have you watched? First
2.
of all, I've also watched the first 2 episodes. There's another reason why I'm annoyed. No, I'm not annoyed. There's another reason why I'm upset about this.
With me? So are we still on my attitude towards the show?
Yeah, a little bit, but this isn't legitimate, by the way.
It's fine.
But
it's a conversation, Jay. We're podcasting.
But one of the reasons I'm so frustrated about it is because Black Mirror is far and above the better show.
And it's funny because I just know that.
Okay,
I know because I'm watching Electric Dreams, and I know that the response to this doesn't even compute when you compare it to what the fan response is to Black Mirror.
Just because it's a phenomenon.
I know that while I'm watching it, and look, and this is something that I want to talk about in general. I told you today I wanted to talk about just sort of the idea. I want to talk about an anthology series sort of in general here,
sure.
But of course we both saw these 2 episodes. So this was on the most anticipated of 2018 list that I did for television.
Same.
Because I'm always looking for some great science fiction. I love the idea of an anthology show. More so, I guess I'm obviously more so of a fan of like something like Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
You just heard my case as to why I think Cloverfield is brilliant on the latest Sight and Sound movies. I will get to Black Mirror, but and Philip K. Dick, such a brilliant, notable science fiction writer. I was really, really intrigued by everything that this show represents. It's right up my alley. And so yeah, Black Mirror for now is just a casualty of war. But
and I agree with essentially everything you just said. The anticipation was super high for the show going into it. Something isn't clicking with me with this. I have just really not been enjoying these episodes.
Let's talk about the risk versus reward.
Okay.
Because this is something that
on paper it should work.
This is something that I think I'd discuss more so with television in general. And
Okay.
I haven't really thought it all out yet when it compares to movies, but I don't want to talk about movies anymore right now. We'll figure that out later. But when it comes to something like even The Defenders, I bring up risk versus reward. Yes, it might be a mediocre show, but it's not like I regret watching it. It's 8 episodes. How
Right.
much did I really give? That's sort of where I'm at with this anthology stuff, and I guess I'm newer to it in terms of the current TV landscape. Because, and actually, another thing that I was fascinated too.
Well, should anthology seasons of shows be thrown in this mix as well? Your True Detectives, your Fargos.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. Is that I did a little bit of research because I kind of thought that we were generalizing all this time and maybe misrepresenting what a show like American Horror Story or True Detective actually is compared to a show like Black Mirror. And as far as I could tell, they're both called anthology.
Right.
Even though like I get it, but I don't.
One's
Because
a serialized season and the other is standalone episodes,
Exactly.
mini movies.
Exactly. Like I get it. Like if you want to call American Horror Story anthology and when you call Black Mirror anthology, I get what you're saying both times, but they're not the same.
Right.
They're not the same. So I would like some clarification if anybody has any. In more so than just saying like episodic and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, the risk,
It's a procedural.
the risk versus reward, that whole idea, you don't ever really have a whole lot to lose here. Like, and I'm not saying that I like all of these shows. But what I will say that the pros and cons of an anthology series such as this is that even when you don't like one of the episodes, that doesn't have to, it doesn't necessarily inform how you feel about the next show. And until you pick up on the fact that like maybe none of this is for you because all of them, all I'm saying is I can't feel good about quitting this season because I have 8 more episodes that can be entirely different to the 2 that I've seen previously, and I won't know until the end if they are all the same product or not. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I've been trying to identify certain differences and certain similarities. One thing that just right from the get-go really bummed me out, sort of comparing the two, is like, okay, one thing that they do a lot in Black Mirror is they use very similar technologies that they use in the first episode, where they're sort of tapping into someone's, consciousness and creating different dreamlike states and realities and this and that. And in Black Mirror, they use the exact same thing to represent that technology that they do in this first episode. These little discs, white discs that they put on their foreheads. Like, guys, they didn't cross anybody's mind like, hey, our show's kind of like, I know that's nitpicky.
And to my, I would assume that the show takes its own liberties. And I know that a lot of these are...
You talking about Electric Dreams?
Yeah.
Oh,
because
both do, yeah.
In the sense that they are maybe just kind of changing a little, because I think they're mainly based off of Philip K. Dick's. Like, I don't think, to my knowledge, I don't think these are just exact representations. I think they might take their own liberties. And so, I mean, part of the problem is, maybe so many things have been done since Philip K. Dick wrote those stories. And that now when, it's sort of like John Carter, where yes, John Carter was the first piece of science fiction ever written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Right. But because we had so many stories, Star Wars, Flash Gordon, since we had all that stuff inform our pop culture consciousness before John Carter and Avatar no longer feel as special. Right. Because so much has come before it. And so that's part of the problem with something like this, is that you're competing with the Black Mirror.
I get that. And that was a minor nitpick. And if any, I'm sure most Black Mirror fans turned that on. They kind of laughed at themselves that was the case here. But
I get it.
Ultimately, so with Black Mirror, and you want to talk about risk and reward, the thing that differs from episode to episode is sort of the execution. Watching these 2 episodes so far, and obviously I know I need to watch more, and obviously you can't take too much away, but just from what little I've watched, Black Mirror is almost like the current state of the MCU. Every single story is a like one episode you're going to have a horror take. One episode you're going to have like a serial killer type of thriller. One episode could be a love story. One episode could be just complete comedy based or like black comedy. And it's different in that sense. When I was watching Electric Dreams, the thing that I found very interesting to me is that so much you're almost getting the opposite of what people typically want from Black Mirror. I always am intrigued by the universe that they're setting up from episode to episode. Like I would love to spend, for instance, the first episode, I forget what the episode was called. The first episode of this season.
The SS San Junipero.
No. The episode with Todd from Breaking Bad. Whatever that guy's name is. Landry from Friday Night Lights. Anyways, I would love to see an entire series of a TV show developed off of that. I'm always interested in the world that they're building because a lot of what each Black Mirror episode is just a concept that you're sort of interested in. And then one of the things that Black Mirror does a lot that I think was missing from these first 2 episodes of Electric Dreams was that you can always relate, even though it's futuristic, even though it's still scientific, you can relate to what's going on. It's not too far-fetched from what you're actually doing in your current day-to-day life in the present day. However, with these Electric Dreams, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not, it felt like they spent so much time developing the worlds that they were actually in. Like I was learning so much about this stuff, like the first episode, learning so much backstory about both of these characters and the worlds that they were in. And in the second episode, you've got this sort of, no spoilers here, but you've got this like post-apocalyptic world and we're learning these rules and this and that. And you just don't really get that much in Black Mirror. And I don't think I was that interested in it. Like I was like, what's the story here? What story are we trying to tell?
The first episode, it's called Real Life. Thought you would like it right away. It's right on board with More Life and Some Life.
It's also the name of a Weekend song. First song off of Be Behind the Madness. It's Real Life.
I thought that episode was so thin and not well acted that it legitimately...
Shout out Sam Witwer, I think the best actor in that episode. And I'm not just saying
not
that.
Only is he the best actor...
I'm not just saying that. I swear to
right,
you.
he is the best actor. His character, you just know nothing about him ever.
Yeah.
Like, I think they mention he's friends with Terrence Howard.
Right. Kind of looking after him, concerned about him.
Right.
More typecast than anything. Just like...
I thought everything about that was so thin. Like, and Anna Paquin playing the lead, like...
Terrence Howard overacting.
She survived. Anna Paquin's character survived a massacre, and it's like, okay, like that was it, and it was so surface level and easy the entire episode that I mean,
that's this type of stuff with mythology that it's just like some things are just best left to mystery. Like what man, I'm really intrigued by what this person went through, but it's not consequential to the story.
It's like,
so don't bring it up.
Even like the bad guy, even the bad guy that they're chasing, like Colin or whatever, I was like, I don't even know what any of that is.
Right.
And so it was so surface level. And Anna Paquin, I never say this about anybody. Yeah. She's a terrible actress. Always and forever.
True Blood.
I legitimately don't get why she's a famous actress.
Yeah. I saw you throwing some video clips into your video there. Is that a new thing?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't do it all the time, to be fair, but I've done it a couple times.
I was so proud when I actually used a Star Wars clip in one of my videos. I was like,
the Boba Fett thing?
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know if it's because the bar was set so low with that episode that I already felt better about Autofac. I mean, I really enjoyed I clearly enjoyed the second episode more. I thought the acting was better. And another great pro.
It was a better episode.
Yes,
for sure.
Another pro to these anthology series is I do get excited to see who's going to pop up next. Like I know Bryan Cranston's in the next episode,
Yeah.
number 3, and there's a lot of Davos is in one of these. Did you know that? Liam
No, I
Cunningham. I'm excited to. I can't wait to see
I'm
Davos.
sad
in
that you
one.
actually know his name. I just want him to be Sir Davos.
It's fair.
The life of Davos. It was gonna be a great shirt.
So that's always cool. And
I feel like
again,
Davos. Yeah.
and again, we can look at this and maybe in terms of like the risk as far as like how, because Black Mirror, as far as I know, is sort of a risque show in that it's deep and dark and pretty thematic at times as
Definitely
well.
thought provoking.
And I think we might be able, once this season is finished, we might be able to declare like maybe Electric Dreams is the safer of the show, and which makes it less interesting. It maybe doesn't explore as much. It might
It's strange because it seems more. It actually, to me, Electric Dreams seems more cinematic feeling in the sense that, like, I feel like these are all pilots of a TV show that I'm not sure if I want to watch or not. Like, whereas Black Mirror episodes, they really do feel like standalone things. I might want more from them.
Yeah.
But there is clearly a beginning, middle, and end of what you're watching. Not that didn't exist here, but it's just different.
Well, and again, I'm speaking as someone who hasn't seen Black Mirror, but it's
the
like,
SS Callister. That was the name of the first episode. Sorry, go ahead.
And I guess the comparison I'm trying to make, again, without having seen Black Mirror, but it's like we could walk away having watched all of Electric Dreams and thought, yes, this is ABC's version of Black Mirror, whereas Black Mirror takes risks and takes advantage of like being on, is it BBC originally, but then Netflix, and so it takes advantage of I'll just say Netflix for the sake of the argument, because like the first thing that I thought of in that second episode, Artifact, it reminded me of the show Revolution. Do you remember that show on NBC where all the electricity goes out?
No.
John Favreau directed the pilot. JJ produced.
Reminded me of Mad Max in the beginning.
Well, I'm not. Of course.
You're talking about the event that happens.
Of course. No, I'm just talking about in the way that it looks like it was a sort of like a network science fiction pilot, like a flash forward. Like
yes,
that.
For sure.
It has that kind of vibe more so than what I am under the impression Black Mirror is like.
Yeah.
So, as a whole, we can walk away from it and be like, yeah, this is the diet Black Mirror, but episode by episode, I'm comfortable. It's still it's a new story every time, new cast, character. It always has the opportunity to give me something new and fresh until I'm able to look at it overall.
Yeah.
And compare. So it's not like I'm writing this off. Again, the risk versus reward. I'm still on board. I will watch this entire season of Electric Dreams. But I think judging it episode by episode, and again, this goes to anthology series in general. Judging it episode by episode is it's one thing.
Yeah.
And then judging it season by season is another. So.
Would you be willing at all to not watching the Black Mirror episodes in order, and like me throwing out like a 5 essential Black Mirror episodes?
Yeah, why wouldn't I?
Yeah. I mean, I think by far overwhelmingly the number one. So I haven't seen every single episode of Black Mirror. But, but I think the overwhelmingly number one episode, the first episode I ever watched that sort of got me interested in it, was San Junipero, the award-winning episode. I think SS Callister is one that you would really have a ton of fun watching.
It's the Star Trek one.
It's just a fun episode.
Yeah.
Also, Hang the DJ, just knowing you and your experiences with online dating and just, the little emo kids inside of us. We all love a good love story.
I love how like our buddies in the Facebook group think that I genuinely believe that first episode of Black Mirror is the detriment to the entire series. It's like, guys, I know better. It's anthology,
right?
Like that's. Yes, I hated that episode. I thought it was terrible, but that's not actually the reason why I haven't watched the rest of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like common agreed upon thing that it's just not that great of an episode. But I mean, even though, and this is the funny thing about Black Mirror too, there are always, not always, there are often times when I say it's always down to the execution. Just as an example, I was ready to crown Hang the DJ better than San Junipero until the very end. They made a decision that bummed me out. And, you know, it's just like, what can you do there? It still didn't change the fact that I had a great time, you know, watching the entire thing. The episode Crocodile, that's the episode that I thought, you know, what's his name from Sicario and Blade Runner? Not Denis Villeneuve. No, the other guy. What's his name?
Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins did the cinematography for it. Beautifully shot. Had some issues with how certain things were executed. Still a fantastic episode. And finally, I think what I can sort of nail down is that Black Mirror is just a little bit more subtle. It's a little bit more clever with how they deal with similar sort of subject matter, dealing with technology and futuristic sort of ideas and landscapes. It's just, it's just a little bit more clever, I think, a little bit more delicate. But they've also had way more time to do all this stuff than a show like Electric Dreams. I'm not down on the show.
And again, to a fault, I mean, in a sense, it might be a problem that they have to base it off, again, these age short stories, you know, when your direct competition can be a little bit more fresh. And
I'm looking forward to watching an episode that's maybe not so futuristic. Like, again, I think that has a lot to do with it. The fact that some of these scenarios are so grandiose in the sense, like, for instance, there was an episode of Black Mirror this past season called Metalhead that was very post-apocalyptic, and it was overwhelmingly one of the least received episodes that they did.
Really?
Yeah, it just felt a little too out of touch with where we are today.
So I saw the headline, I think yesterday. Does it bother you that somewhere in season 4, acknowledges that Black Mirror exists within the same universe?
No, not at all.
Doesn't matter.
And in fact, there's only one episode that sort of touches on that. I think it would be interesting if they did something like that, but it also doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It just, there could be one universe where these things are linked together and other universes that just don't. I hope that somebody out there, Charlie Brooker, what's his name?
I think it's Brooker.
That guy, so. I think he should direct a Marvel film. I know that's people are like, okay, here we go. But
here we go.
I really do think that. I think he should
direct. Christopher Nolan should direct Star Wars.
I think he should direct the sequel
I think
he should direct the next Spider-Man film. I think that would be fantastic.
Too late. John Watts is directing.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is directing that, isn't he? I don't know. I'd like him to direct something. I hope somebody would look at all the episodes of Black Mirror as potential pilots for a show. Like, you know, Netflix could really build on that. Like,
that'd be cool.
And SS Callister by far was one of the episodes that they did the most with their budget. Like,
I think it might happen one day. I think there will be enough demand where people love something so much that they're like, why don't we do this? And it would be like just like a Better Call Saul situation where like this character was really beloved from this original series. Why don't we move forward? And I think that could absolutely happen with any of these anthology series.
For sure. There's an Easter egg in that episode, SS Callister, that I can't wait for you to get to. Okay. It made me, I literally stood up and started fist pumping because of my fandom of other things. I was like, yes.
I thought it was interesting when, so in my last movies episode, I talked a lot about Cloverfield. And so naturally the idea of an anthology movie series came up, and so people were taken by some of my comments in our Facebook group, and I was surprised to see so many people disagree with me.
Yeah,
and my take.
I didn't know you had that opinion.
Well,
I disagreed with you,
and I that's fine. But here's where I'm at with that.
It's interpretive. So.
I was gonna say, here's where I'm at with that. It's not concrete that they 100%. Do exist, and I think even outside of Cloverfield, even if you were to going back to my question for you about Black Mirror, it's like, I just don't have a problem with it because I don't. That's not realistic to me. Like, it's of course in general we're talking about suspending our belief,
right?
When it comes to any of this stuff,
you don't have a Kevin Feige running the Cloverfield.
It's not even that. It's just when you tell me that all of these weird events exist on one planet, it's like that's just not practical to me. It's like my suspension only goes so far, and it's like.
Do you know the theory that how all Pixar movies are allegedly tied together. It's just like that's fun. That's a fun sandbox to play in.
But I mean, I don't buy, even though you can say it.
Mhm.
Like if well, maybe John Lasseter is not the best example because sexual harassment. But if anybody wanted to say, yeah, it exists in the same universe, so the same toys that are being played with in Up or Inside Out, those can actually come to life when those, like, if you say that, I don't necessarily buy it. And again, going back, it is interpretive. Like, to me, they're just not in the same universe because those movies, there's not a thread that links them all together in the way that the MCU does. MCU,
especially something that's not consequential.
It's like exactly. That's my point.
We're not
so it's like
we're not thinking about, well, how do these people being locked in this cellar? How does it relate to the monster in Cloverfield 1?
I mean, so when you tell me like when I'm watching 10 Cloverfield Lane, I don't buy that Michelle lives in a world where New York was attacked by a monster a few years ago, because nothing at all informs that she knows that.
Right.
So it's like when you tell me, even if the studio head, even if J.J. Abrams says, yeah, they exist in the same universe, but part of me is like, I could just easily say they aren't and be just as right as you.
Absolutely.
Because you're just labeling it that without any sort of information inside the actual product.
Yeah, and even when I say that I think that they are, I think more, I don't even necessarily mean like, okay, well, 10 Cloverfield Lane was clearly the prequel, and then you have the attack, and then this next one they're going to be out in space. I don't even necessarily mean that. I just mean in the sense that I think that they're doing small things to at least make you think about it.
Yeah.
That may be the case, and that's fine. Like if they do and they never actually paid on that promise, paid that off, I'd be fine with it. But we're still getting great movies.
Back to the backbone of this entire discussion, there's pros and cons with anthology storytelling, and it doesn't have to be connected. Whether you label it or not, I mean, it's just a different way to approach how stories are told in general nowadays. And regardless, it's just a really fun and exciting.
I think it's an exciting storytelling medium, and I think we're sort of just seeing the dawn of it in this modern era, because look, it gives great reason for people who are still working in the film industry. It gives them reason to go and play in another sandbox. Outside of that, you often get, especially with anthology seasons, you get fantastic actors and actresses that you don't typically see on television. You get directors, you get writers and cinematographers, because their time is so limited. And I think if we're just starting out and the payoff is so rewarding for so much, you can write off, I don't know, maybe there were some bad seasons of Fargo, you can write off True Detective season 2, but I think if some of these directors, actors and whatnot that are acting in smaller films that aren't getting the big budgets, or they're not getting the return in the theater, maybe we'll see them convert more over to stuff like this.
Anthology series definitely blur the lines between TV and movies more so than they already are. I mean, they really, really do.
You could say True Detective season 1 was the best movie to come out that year.
Right. I know this might go against my support for like up and coming amateur screenwriters, filmmakers, or whatever. I love that they're able to play around, and a lot of future filmmakers might come from these types of series. But at the same time, I would love it if Black Mirror season 5 had their J.J. Abrams episode, where he was able to come in and do something like
yeah.
I think that would be incredible.
Yeah,
to see Ryan Johnson do it. That'd be great. Neil Blomkamp should make his comeback and do something like this.
100%.
He's kind of already doing it on YouTube with the I can't remember his studios thing that he's got going on right now. No, it's not Blur. That's Tim Miller. I can't remember what Neil Blomkamp's project is right now, but Neil Blomkamp, like Chappie, should have been an episode of Black Mirror. Seriously.
Yeah. So I haven't seen Chappie. It's on Netflix right now.
People, I won't get
Yeah, putting a lot of stock into anthology stuff. Heat meter is very high, just because, again, like I said, the return on investment has been so great. I'm looking forward to you at least watching more Black Mirror, and I'm hoping that Electric Dreams sort of picks up for me. Yeah, you got anything else?
No, I forget. It was less than news here. We just had a lot of discussions about.
Yeah,
it was good.
News site. We're in a very odd time right now. The beginning of the year is always strange because, movies in January, store waiting for stuff. Nobody wants to have the first album out in the year, so we're sort of waiting for an album to drop. And TV is, you just never really know what's going on sometimes. But the difference between this year feels different because I feel like there's so much news across all platforms. Like, our movies and our music discussion were both based on just a whole plethora of different news topics to bring up. It's been a lot of fun. You can find me on social media at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E, Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Also on our YouTube channel, subscribe. Sometimes I do my music show on Friday via video. You can watch it there. Buy our shirt, sightsoundpod.com. And we do other things, other places. Ryan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. We kind of already sprinkled everything. We were talking about where we are with T-shirts, where we are with Patreon, and all that kind of stuff. So you know where we are. Facebook is getting rid of pages being able to publish in news feeds. So our very popular Sight and Sound Facebook page.
The one that Brando just randomly posts on sometimes. He did it like twice this week.
He's done it quite a bit, yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to get to the group.
You know where you can find us. You know what we're doing. Please follow the link. We're pretty popular on Podbean. We have like over 600 followers on Podbean alone.
It's
which
like
is
our
great.
second biggest.
I would
channel.
love. I'm sure that they sparingly listen to our episodes. I don't think that community listens to every single one.
Oh no.
In the way that our Facebook group is a little bit more dedicated. But if you're listening to this and you're just a follower on Podbean, we have a Facebook group that we would love. We want more people to join in 2018. We would love to have you. We're having really in-depth, expansive conversations on all of the stuff that we do here, and we'd love for you to get involved with Sight and Sound.
Yeah, we're doing some interesting things too with the Facebook group. I made this announcement sort of as a thing for me just to follow through with, but based on some conversations that were had via comments, I came up with this interesting idea. We've all heard of a book club where a community selects a book and they read it, and then they discuss it as a community. We don't read books, or at least I don't. So I'm launching this thing called the Sight and Sound Record Club. Basically, we're going to pick an artist and listen to their entire catalog of albums. We're only going to pick artists that have smaller catalogs. And the first one that we're going to do is the 1975s. They have an album coming out this year. It's one of my most anticipated albums. And I think more people need to be more familiar with bands' entire catalogs as opposed to their first one. So we are going to listen to the band's first album. It's a self-titled album. I'm going to announce more details about it soon once I've got them figured out, but we're going to listen to it as a group. Yeah, I said the 1975. You realize you don't have a microphone in front of your face anymore. Then we're probably going to do like a live listen along. I'll probably do it on Facebook Live. So I'll play the album all the way through. I'll do some commentary on it while it's going on. We can all listen and talk about it together. And then I invited Brando to come on and do a podcast with me about it as well. So it should be fun. If you've never checked out the 1975, their music is very palatable, very digestible, easy to listen to band, but a very interesting band nonetheless. So check that out. You can only find some of that stuff on the Facebook group. You got anything else? All right. He's shaking his head no. He took the microphone away. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.